Hello everybody and welcome to episode 31 of the Look Out Sir 40k podcast, a Warhammer 40,000 podcast made, developed, produced and or delivered by an association of individuals who together are known by the collective name of Look Out Sir. Welcome one and all to this, the 31st episode, which I've said already, somewhat treading old ground. But on the topic of someone who never is known for treading old ground, it's the glorious Phil. How are you doing today, Phil?
I'm really good, thank you.
I mean, that, at its best, was one of the most tenuous kind of, introductions I could conceive. I just kind of talked myself into a corner. But how you doing, Phil? You all right?
Yeah, not too bad. It's been a busy week, sort of recovering from no retreats and also appearing on Winter's channel. Obviously, got recorded ages ago, but I'm now live on Winter's SEO, which is pretty cool.
Congratulations, mate. There you go. And how did you perform? I mean, admittedly, don't spoil it for everybody, but was it a good showing? Do you feel proud of how you achieved and did things?
Yeah, mostly. I think that if I was to do it again, I would tweak probably my deployment a bit. I think that's where I messed up predominantly. But I also wanted to give a good game, so it's like you're up against Tyranids, it's Maelstrom. Do you hide in the corner and wait for them to come to you, or do you sort of do it a bit more thematic and narrative and be a bit more aggressive and deploy in your deployment zone, like the edge, with the intention of trying to go get some objectives? So I did that, even though that's not the most sound, strategic way of playing. But it was all okay in the end. I was not giving it away, of course.
Well, of course. I was going to say to Rich, as a potential kind of quiz question, he should have trawled through the YouTube comments and discovered the rules that people think you got wrong.
Oh, that would be hilarious. Yeah, I've been trying to avoid them so far. I've been told there's some very positive comments on there. I think there was maybe a couple of negative ones, but so far, from what I've been told from someone else, none about rules issues. But I could be wrong.
We could do.
I'm sure people will listen to it now and then go on and put some on there.
I'm sure they might.
I'm not one to point out when people get rules wrong.
Flippin' egg. Who could that be? It's only Rich. How you doing, Rich?
All right, I'm doing good. Hello.
Hello.
I feel bad now. I've interrupted my own glorious intro.
It's fine, mate. It's fine.
Probably for the best.
Exactly. Who knows where I might go with that introduction? But it's good to have you on board as always, pal. What have you been doing lately?
I've been busy. I've been busy with work stuff. I've been actually spent a lot of time thinking more about my Elysian drop troops and kind of finishing those guys. I'd kind of want to do that in the next few weeks before the new Imperial Fist rules come out. So if I get my Elysians planned out, basically go for my bags of resin, decide what I'm actually going to build, and then build it, and then donate / offload what I've got left to a good home of anyone else who'd like some Elysians. So if you're on the lookout for some Elysians in the future, keep it posted. I'll probably let people know where that's going to be available from, because I do have a few left.
Absolutely. It sounds almost like you're going to be giving them away, Rich. Is that the case?
I mean, sometimes I'm inclined to, because it's more, selling as a faff, and I'm all one for avoiding faff if I can help it.
There you go. Well, if Rich is feeling especially generous, keep an eye on Instagram and or other locations where we talk about these things, and you may become the owner of some second-hand Elysian. Legitimate Forge World. None of that Chinese knockoff nonsense round here.
I'd say it's 90% legitimate.
90%. You didn't need to, incriminate yourself like that, mate. But I mean, I appreciate your honesty.
I picked some of it off eBay myself, so I don't know.
Oh, I see. You can't speak to its authenticity in that case.
No, I mean, I bought what I could officially while I was able to finish some of my army, especially things like las cutters, which I was glad to build and will never use because they're rubbish. But I've got them, and I had to get them from eBay. So,
boom, lovely stuff. In addition to Rich and Phil joining us today, we have also got the oh-so-illustrious, yet somewhat unreliable Joe. How you doing, Joe?
I'm alright. I am wholly reliable when I choose to be.
Joe, what is your favourite ice cream, Joe?
My favourite ice cream?
Yeah, your favourite ice cream. When you go to the ice cream vendor, what do you like from the ice cream vendor?
Oh, that's an expansive question.
Well, exactly.
I'll have to go rum and raisin.
Really? I would have thought it would have been a 99 with a flake in it. Because you're a flake, Joe!
I'm not a flake. I've just got a life.
This is what you say all the time, but we've had this planned for months. It's burned me deep. I've been waiting all day to, let you have it in regards to your failure to attend events with,
out me on social media.
Well, that's it, mate. That's it. So for those who don't already know, me and Joe were going to go to a doubles tournament next month, but he let me down, cut me deep. It's going to be my birthday tournament weekender with good old buddy Joe, but now not the case.
Oh. But I went to a tournament this weekend, all on my own.
Well, that's true, because I've been in Portugal for the last, 6 days. It was very difficult. And I didn't
could have come back for it.
Yeah, but I didn't originally commit to go to the tournament and then go to Portugal. I already knew I was going to Portugal, then didn't go to the tournament, you see.
Calippo.
Yes.
That's my preferred ice cream from the ice cream vendor.
What do you call it? A calippo?
Isn't that how you pronounce it?
Isn't it a calypso?
It's a calippo.
Oh my god, this is a whole realm of weirdness. Which version are we going to go with? The calypso, the calippo, or the calippo?
I think it's a calippo.
Alright, flipping heck.
What do Phil and Paulie think?
Well, Rich, you've stolen
Oh,
this
sorry.
as well. I was going to say,
Maybe your arms cancelled.
The calippo comes in a famously orange flavour, and a man well known for painting an orange army. That was as good as I could come up with on the fly. It's Paulie from Sky Serpent, the Facebook and/or it's not a YouTube channel, is it, Paulie? It's like a blog or something, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's just a blog. I have a Facebook page and a Instagram page as well.
There you go. You're well into them Drakari, am I right?
I would definitely describe myself as a Drakari fanboy. You're correct. And also, it's definitely Calippo, by the way. Definitely Calippo.
Calippo we're going with, isn't it?
I agree.
Thank you. I feel vindicated.
No, well, I mean, to be fair, I have got the dyslexic disposition, so it's always going to be a negative scenario from me. It's the ice lolly that you push up, right? From the thing. Yeah. We are thinking of the same thing. It's not like an ice cream I'm not aware of.
Did you remember when they used to do the Calippo shots?
They
were great.
Yeah, they were lime, weren't they?
Yeah.
This is the sort of things that people complain about in our comments, by the way. This is where we go to places that no one's interested in. They're like, why are you talking about this? And to which I can...
It's important we clarify the pronunciation of this.
Well, exactly. That's more the important point. And in a way, it's sort of, relevant to all things 40k, because sometimes people can make judgment calls about rules based on their understanding of the English language. And clearly, as the one who got it wrong, I can't be trusted when it comes to interpreting rules correctly.
No. 2 points.
Well, thanks, Joe. There we go. So, Paulie, what have you been doing lately, mate? What's going on in your world?
Well, without spoiling, I guess getting excited about an upcoming release. Pretending to paint, but not really painting. But obviously, I've just come back from Gibraltar last weekend for a retreat. And a few other events recently. I've got quite a few other events coming up, but I think it's just trying to work out what to take to them. That I've had some mixed events recently. I've done quite well in Pure Eternal War. I had my second ITC event at LGT where I didn't do very well. I went 1-4, which was
wow.
Yeah, it was so strange in the sense I did the Bad Moon GT heats earlier in the year, back I think in March, and it was my first time playing ITC, and somehow I went 4-1 with Reavers and really enjoyed it. I was like, oh, ITC is amazing. And then I went to LGT, and I have a habit of not reading rules pack or not tailoring my list to that. And where I'd taken my list, which I've been fine-tuning all year, adding extra venoms and stuff, it didn't work out for ITC. I just bled secondaries, but just sort of learning from that and sort of looking forward to the future, really, just trying to work out what's next for the Drakari.
Well, exactly. Well, it seems like there's a lot on the horizon. You're going to have new Coven and Cabal rules, if what they're saying on the videos is to be believed. There's going to be all sorts of new attributes and units and exciting stuff going on. So, yeah, as a Craftworld player, I also am intrigued to see if they can come up with a reason for me not just to take 6 different types of Crimson Hunter. But we'll see. I'm sure they will.
No, you're very right in that. I think at the moment it's a case of
the go-to cabals for Drakari, is obviously Black Heart with the spearhead, Writ the Living Reeds, etc. And obviously Flayed Skull is very, potent with the fast movement, ignores cover. So I think there's going to have to be some really cool cabal rules. Same with Prophets of Flesh, Like, I don't think there's been many Drakari players in a competitive scene where they've taken, a Covenant other than Prophets of Flesh. I did a stats sort of rundown of LGT for all the Drakari players, and not a single person running Covenants took anything other than Prophets of Flesh. Just purely because, the Warlord trait is so strong. Black Cornucopians, the stratagem is so strong, the 4++. I think hopefully there's something good which makes you want to choose that. I think the Witch cults, where there's some really good cults, but I'm really hoping for something which helps with charges, because I really love Witches coming from the webway. Anything which makes that easier, because relying on 9-inch charges can make you either jump for joy or tear your hair out.
Well, they're very statistically unlikely, aren't they? That's the reality of the situation. I think it was something like, 28% chance of actually achieving it, or even maybe greater odds. It's like 1 in 3 chance you'll make a 9-inch charge, I think is what it comes out to. Isn't that right, Phil? You had the charts and the knowledge.
Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah, it's actually a lot lower than you'd actually imagine it would be.
I don't mind. I use weighted dice, so it doesn't bother me at all. Anyway, on the topic of tournaments and people doing well at them as well, we should probably find the time to acknowledge and, shower in praise the otherwise flaky individual known as Joe, because he came second on the weekend, didn't you, Joe?
I did. The Kings of Winter event down at Pool Entoyment with 40k brawl with my Celestial Lion Iron Hands.
Oh, there's a topic of some controversy. Aren't they supposed to be an Imperial Fist faction, Joe?
They are, but I wanted to do well, and Imperial Fist don't have a codex yet, so I upset the apple cart and just took various.
Well, without wanting to spoil things, I feel like this is a...
Sorry, that was me just dropping my Codex Space Marines on the floor.
What Joe means is they haven't got a supplement, Rich.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, no one takes Imperial Fists yet because there's no supplement.
Absolutely, that's something they're waiting for.
But as we were discussing before this podcast, I will be taking Imperial Fist because they will be the hard counter to Iron Hands, thus appeasing the fluff of my actual army, and my opponents will be like, they're gold, not black, mate.
There you go. But how did it feel to go 3-0 and get another second place? That's your second place this year, isn't it?
That is my second place. I'm always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Well,
does it feel weird as well to have, scored a second place finish without me finishing first?
Yeah, it was a bit annoying because I was like, I'm going to go all the way this time. Dan's not here to ruin my fun. But as we know, I can place above you in tournaments, so it's not unheard of. So yeah, Iron Hands are crazy good. I don't think you need 3 repulsors at all. I didn't even have 1, and I did super well with them. The Iron Hands boogeyman that is the Leviathan is hilarious, and hilariously in all 3 of my games, it didn't actually get to shoot for the first 2 turns, because all of my opponents just backed up into the corners and hid.
I mean, that psychological impact, though, is massive, right? Like, having that early game having that level of control over the movement of your opponent is so massive. Which is definitely can't be understated.
Did like the psychological thing before the game, and it's like, if I make it a character with its 20 shots, it's exploding with 6s, it's hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s, and obviously I'm wounding you on 5s, but I'm re-rolling 1s, and 6s wound you twice.
Boom.
So I'm getting on average.
With a stratagem, you should say, Joe.
With the stratagem and the warlord trait.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, cool, and how much damage does it do? And you're like, well, it could probably kill a knight in 1 round of shooting. And they're like, oh, okay then. And 2 of my games, one guy had 2 knights, and in my last game, he had 3 knights, and they just kind of cowered at the back. They're like, nope, no, thank you, not today.
They got the fear. That's the problem, man. If you get a unit of Shining Spears getting quickened coming at you, though, and then they don't charge the Leviathan, they charge one of the characters and then fan out, that's going to cause you a bit of a bother, though, isn't it?
I did mess up in my second game against a very good Chaos Space Marines and Renegade Knights player who was running 3 Disco Lords.
Ooh,
And
nice.
I didn't put my screen out far enough. So he ran in, hit my intercessors, murdered them because they're the Emperor's Children, or the Emperor's Children, not Emperor's Children people with the explode.
The flailed skin ones, what they called now? Excess flesh, skinny, flesh, excess.
Yeah, and it basically murdered them, and then managed to get his little toe onto the Leviathan's base.
Ah, boo.
But then, like, everything fell back, and the rest of my army just killed them, so it was fine.
Still, though, Joe, a second place finish at a tournament with a broken army. I mean, that is that deserves an applause. Go on now. Well done, Joe. No,
Could you make that clap a bit slower?
Huh?
Could you make that clap a bit slower?
Oh, you want a golf clap for him? I mean, I can hardly argue. All my wins came with Elder Flag spam when they were ridiculously powerful. So, you know, hands up. It is the way it goes. Awesome. Well, look, the show is this. We're going to talk about the No Retreat stuff. That's why Paulie's here, because he was at No Retreat. But also there's a whole Elder contingency thing there, because ultimately they've got a new box set coming out for the Psychic Storm Gathering, whatever it's called again. Psychic Awakening. And yeah, we're also so look, let's structure this a bit better. Quiz first, then talk about No Retreat, then we're going to be telling you about our exciting new innovation in the world of collective gaming, known as our kind of, what are those events that they had before? 4 gamers, something or other?
Tale of 4 Warlords?
Tale of 4 Warlords / gamers. Although there's 6 of us in this instance, and we're all doing a different Space Marine chapter. So that's a thing we're going to talk about. So yeah, quiz is coming up. Then we're going to talk about No Retreat. Then we're going to do a whole thing about all the different Space Marine armies we're planning on playing and getting together and trying to duff each other up with. And that'll pretty much bring us up to speed on what we'll be talking about. So, with that said, I guess we might as well transition to the not the end of the show quiz.
Fingers on buzzers, everyone, because it's time for the end of the show quiz.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's Not the End of the Show quiz. How you guys boys all doing? We have a special guest this week. For those of you who obviously know, as you listen to the intro, which played immediately before this, we have Paulie joining us. So there's now 4 people vying for the most points in this week's quiz. How are you all doing, boys?
Very well, mate. Who won the last one?
All right.
It's a very good question. I probably should have checked before I reset all the scoreboards in my Excel sheet.
Well, exactly.
Wasn't it you, Dan? Didn't you?
I think it was Dan.
Flip it to the lead. Yeah.
I didn't.
I think it was really close between you and me, and then you won at the very end.
Well, there you go. I mean, I definitely wasn't just bringing everyone's attention to that fact to gloat about my superior knowledge of Warhammer 40,000 and or associated things, but, you know, clearly that is the case. What a nerd.
Well, there's it all to play for, though. Phil's won it. I think Phil won the first one.
Yep.
And Dan.
Yeah.
So in a way,
It's now
makes
up-
him the best. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, it means it's all to play for
Oh.
Joe, but also for Paulie. There's, historically the guest wins.
Well, that is
So-
true. Is there a chance that Joe may still not win but lose out to the guest? Or have you ever won, Joe? Has there ever been a victory?
I have
for Joe?
one.
In the new format?
No.
I won the old quiz.
Oh, yeah, I remember, because it was the one where you just had to guess numbers.
Yeah, apparently that's my forte.
There you
Just
go.
shouting loudly.
Joe, pick a number between 1 and 10.
7.
That was the number I was thinking of. Hey! Well done.
Okay, all right, boys. Let's crack on.
That legitimately was the number
Yeah.
I was thinking of, by the way. That was very
Well-
clever, Joe. That's our weird
alright.
psychic link we've got there.
It's my talent. What can I say?
Well, on that great moment, Joe, would you like to test your buzzer?
I'll go on then. I'm going to throw it out there.
I've got a tiny chainsaw in my pocket. It's easy to start it, but it's hard to stop it. You can cut tiny trees to make tiny houses, but be careful when you put it back in your trousers. It goes Ow!
Brilliant, I think.
That was a sound.
There you go. What inspired you to pick that buzzer in particular, Joe?
Much like my number guessing, I just throw it out there. I just pick things out of my brain, as disturbing as they are.
I thought you did very well. Very good buzzer.
Well, go Dan. As you're quick to do a lot of the speaking now, would you like to let us hear your buzzer?
Well, thank you very much, Joe. Thank you very much, Rich. Dan, because you're trying to steal the thunder, just shut up and get on with it. I understand. Here is my buzzer.
Hey kids! Welcome to Asthma World, the insanely great guide to life with asthma. It's just for the cool kid with asthma.
Well, and never a more appropriate sound was heard.
I tried to keep it in keeping with the theme that has just been created, you know? Trying to keep it real.
Next up, we have obviously, regular. We mentioned it before. Phil is here for the quiz this week. Phil, what's your buzzer this time?
No surprises here.
Men are dirty, sir. Rifles are clean.
Old favourite there, back again. Glad to have you here, Phil. Most importantly of all, we have our new competitor for this week, Paulie, special guest. Let's test out your buzzer, Paulie.
You have just made a serious mistake, my friend.
And what a sound that was. Very thematic. Glad it's here. Special one for you listeners back home who obviously don't realise that I have no idea what the buzzers sound like.
Indeed.
when we record it.
I'm slightly cautious about the fact that Paulie hasn't said anything at this point either. Paul, are you there?
I'm definitely here.
He's definitely here. We'll know. I've a good feeling about how well Paulie's going to do.
Yeah, you think he's got this in the bag?
Well, we will see. We will see. As we begin the Not the End of the Show quiz, as usual, with this new format, I will give if and take if away points as I see fit. And I'll give bonus points if appropriate, and take them away if you're just being awkward or annoying like Dan was last week, even though he still won. We do our best to keep the things fair. Should
I mention it didn't happen last week, Rich? It was like 3 weeks ago.
Was it 3 weeks ago? Oh, okay.
4 weeks ago now. I mean, it was 2 episodes ago.
Look, I like how you're desperate to start on a negative points by giving sass to the quizmaster already, doing exactly what he told you not to do.
Exactly. I thought, may as well start as I mean to carry on. Just get it in there. But anyway, yeah. Sorry, I'll be quiet now. Move on.
Okay, so moving on to our first question. It's a little bit random this week, but let's see how the format goes. First question. Question number 1. Ready with your buzzers. What is the name of the first Psychic Awakening box set, and which special character? I was interrupted halfway through reading the question, but first was Paulie. Paulie, what is your answer to that question?
Blood of the Phoenix. And I can't remember the rest of the question, but I think it's talking about Exarch. So was it Janzar? And if you're after Drazar as the other special character, potentially.
That was what I was after. I was after the name of the box and the special characters within it, which you buzzed in early, but you still get all the points.
He's good at this.
He's all right, isn't he? He's on it.
Drakari are known for their alpha strikes and speed.
He's got those agents effect. He knows the answers before we even get the questions.
And for the benefit of the new listeners, obviously for Paulie as well, now is your opportunity to wax lyrical on the topic of the Blood of the Phoenix box set and the new special characters, or anything else related to the Eldari and Drukhari that we've learned in the last few weeks.
Of course, so it is, as a Drukhari player that, I've only played, so a bit of background that I started the hobby at the dawn of 3rd edition and Dark Eldar, my first army, and then I did lots of other armies. I took a bit of a break, and I came back into the hobby around 2009. And it was at that moment that I was like, I played around some Exodites for a little while, and then 2010 came Dark Eldar, came back out, and literally I've only played them since. I've seeped here and there. I've added some Harlequins and some Craft Worlds, but I focus just purely on Drukhari, who I adore and love, and If you visited my my pages, you'll see my sort of my journeys each year as I go through events and try and paint new models. And this is, well, the most exciting release for Drakari players since, the Codex back, was it last March or the March before that? It's obviously really exciting to see the first plastic special character for Drakari, and obviously to see the iconic Incubi get plastic sets as well. And obviously, I'm more of a Drakari fan than Eldari itself as as a concept, but Janzar and the Howling Banshees are really good as well. There's definitely a nod to the Yunari in there. As a box set, so it's allegedly £140, which is very expensive.
How much?
£140, which is that's really expensive, and you don't even get the campaign book. The campaign book is separate; it's at £25. So if you're looking to get everything without the collector's edition, you're looking at spending £165, which is quite a lot, especially if you only wanted Drazar or wanted the new Incubi. So yeah, but
this is quite a common practice for GW now, though, isn't it? That they never really ever just release a character or a unit. They've always got to, at least for the most significant ones, but also for the greater majority of things, it seems they've always gone into this habit now of, let's not just release the new thing that people want. Let's release the new thing with a bunch of stuff that we can't shift. Because, the Craftworld Eldari units that they bundled into this is a Falcon and a Viper. To put it in context, when I was telling Phil about this, he didn't even know the Falcon was a thing.
No, I know. Never played it or seen it in 8th edition, or really since I've been back in the hobby. So, yeah. I'm sure loosely aware, but yeah, I wasn't sure it was a thing.
He was like, what does a Falcon do? I was like, what do you mean what's a Falcon do? It's like...
Do you think that the Wave Serpent would have been too powerful in the box set if they put it in?
Yes.
I think as armies, they don't really work as armies. They're definitely some random sort of models thrown in potentially, of Hellions, so they poor sellers, but you never know with a new book, the new rules for, make your own obsessions. You might be able to splice your own cult and Hellions become really good. And, Scourges, I so. I've had success in the past, especially as the meta. I think Haywire Scourges are definitely like a good scalpel for the toolkit, as it were.
My annoyance was that obviously the Craft Worlds get the Falcon, which holds 6 people, so 5 Banshees in Jane's R, whereas the Dark Eldar get a Venom, which only holds 5 people, which means the Drazar's got to walk. So it's a bit unfair, that he's got to walk across the table and potentially get killed off by fast-moving vehicles.
But he's hunting Janzar, isn't he? So I reckon he's going to web Portal in to try and catch her off guard.
Well, they're saying that they're upgrading obsessions like they have upgraded the chapter tactics. So what they did with the chapter tactics is they took the old one and then stapled on a second thing after it to kind of make it a bit better. So I think that's what they're going to do this way around again, is just take, Blackheart, which get the Feel No Pain, or the +1, and then staple an extra thing on top of that kind of thing.
Well, if they're going to as well, because the colour scheme they've gone for on the box is Samhan, and Samhan have reroll charges. So reroll charges, if they did something like reroll charges and get an extra +1 attack or something, that would even be more terrifying. The other thing as well, though, your point about the transport capacity, do you reckon Jane's R's going to be, take up 1 slot in a vehicle? She's pretty massive.
Yeah, she'll only do it, because if you think about
she's on a Terminator base, though.
I know, but if you think about the Chaos release, Abaddon, who's now a big boy, he's a big boy, still only takes up 2 slots in a Land Raider.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, because he's still only classed as having Terminator armor.
God, some weird things that go on in there in terms of the relationship between model proportions and actual gameplay.
But think about the Sky Weaver, not Sky, or Star Weaver, the transport for the Harlequins, which is a little bit bigger than a Venom. That holds 6. So I'd like to see an update in the rules so that the Venom
They should move back to the old Gorka Walker style, where just as many models as you get to hang off the edge of it. That's how many models can transport it.
And any that fall off as you move it die.
Yeah, which would probably be most of your Dark Elder. But,
well, exactly. Well, they've got all those hooks and spiky bits. You can just kind of hook them into the side of it. It'll be fine.
Well, that's the idea. If you look at a Venom, I reckon you can easily fit 8 guys on that. A couple of guys stood at the back and loads of people hanging off. But
yeah, totally, mate, totally. The Jane Czar model, as we've kind of talked about in the past, is freaking amazing. Of the two of them, I am much more of a fan of Jane Czar than I am Drazar, which is a shame, really, because I was really hopeful for Drazar. And don't get me wrong, this is a beautiful model, but it's not quite what I was hoping for from Drazar. There's something about... I don't like his base. I've got a problem with his base. And I don't know whether this is just an issue with the photos that they've released of him so far. I'm not super keen on his pose.
No, I love his base. I really like him. I think having watched the designer notes video today where Jez Goodwin's talking about him, how there's subtle sort of nods to the old Drazar model. That's why he's actually holding his demiclave sort of backwards. I think a lot of times everyone falls into a trap where they see a new model. Shrike and all the other ones recently. I think you really need to see a 360 of it. You need to be able to hold it in your hand to actually appreciate it. I think Drazar's phenomenal. For me, a secret is I actually prefer the old Incubi from back in the day. I prefer the Punishers and the Tormentor Helm. I really like that sort of look where it's a bit even more of a nod that they're actually Drazar is. I'm going to merge the name, but is it Aha, the father of Scorpions? That he is actually a fallen Phoenix Lord. Whether they're actually going to go into that a bit more, but for me, the Incubi, that they are really nice. But you take away their claves, take away their helmets, they're just Cabalot warriors with fancy backs. In that sense, but they're outstanding. I really hope that they become a lot more usable. I don't think they're really seen in competitive play, and obviously, being competitive and stuff being good in the game isn't a reason to purchase something and take it. But obviously, if you are going to events, then you do want things to be good. It's looking, talking to a lot of other Drakari players. Drazar seems interesting, especially with his weapons becoming sort of damage to the abilities to roll wounds to 6s to make more damage and the potential to keep attacking again. He's not going to do a knight, but he actually might be that really useful character to sort of bubble wrap your army. And if there is something, sort of a half-wounded knight, which you hope your disintegrators are going to do something to, you actually might be able to come in and finish off.
Do you think that they chose to do Incubi because of Yunari? It seems that all the rules for Yunari are all about buffing Incubi.
Yeah, I think Yunari are quite a strange concept still. That I think they were definitely a MacGuffin to try and close off the car crash of 7th and move the fluff on, bring Gilliman back, etc. I think Eve Rain's actually. She's actually a fantastic special character. Her background and everything about her is awesome, but they seem as a faction slightly ham-fisted. That talking to, I went to the Warhammer Fest back when 8th launched, and talking to Jez Goodwin, he explained that you should view them more as like a religious movement, like a church in that sense. And I think that's actually a really good way of looking at them. But I just find them quite odd that how you represent them on the tabletop. But obviously, with the ability to, it looks like you'll be able to make Yunari sort of howling banshees by having them without their masks. I think it'd be interesting to see that. But I'd actually much rather see some actual, Yunari units in the future. Something to flesh out that faction.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. We had the conversation about the Banshee Exarch when it was revealed, and my frustration with the Banshee Exarch is completely because of the fact that it doesn't work as a Yunari model, in essence, because Yunari is a decadent, more kind of old-school Eldari character, i.e. they've got this new god of death now, and they don't need to worry about all this Slaanesh nonsense and all this sticking to a path and being a stoic, religion. Well, not that they're not religious in their own way, but they don't need to kind of take this very kind of bare bones approach to their existence. They're much more the old school way of existence for the Elder, and they're much more creative and expressive and all this stuff that kind of comes along with no longer worrying about having your soul consumed. And you see that in models like the Visarch, for example, which has all those beautifully ornate, Baroque armor. And in the case of the Exarch with some Ynnari bits, it's not Ynnari enough to feel like a Ynnari model. It just looks like a weird halfway house that I'm not super into. And also I think it's really weird as well that they didn't, or at least it doesn't appear that they took the same kind of opportunities with the Incubi to offer, Ynnari Incubi, which was weird as well.
I agree. I think that was quite odd and maybe potentially missed opportunity that I think, sometimes these releases, obviously they're working on stuff, years and years in advance, but whether it was a case of, they finalise, Drazar, I heard a rumour that Drazar might have come with the Codex back when that was released, so, potentially, they might have been sat on these releases, and then, I'm sure, they're fantastic retailers, they know what they're doing, but it's a case of they might have sat in a room and be like, hey, how are we going to sell these? Actually, let's put these together. The guys have got a cool idea for a story. Let's put them together, put them in a box set, and charge £140. But it's still going to fly. Is that the most expensive army box ever? Like when they face off as a two, I think if you're an Eldari player, if you're not just strictly Drakari or Asiani, etc., then actually it's quite good value. If you're a Ynnari player, it's good. I think there's going to be opportunities potentially on eBay that, I want 15, 20 Incubi that I think they're going to be really cool ways to make nice Cyberites for your Cabalite squads. And I just, I'd love to be able to have, 10 Incubi, if they're good and, use them for conversions. But it's, I think there's a lot of people that won't be in the position to drop £165 next Saturday.
Yeah.
I find that it's always in the middle of the month as well, nowhere near payday when they do these kind of things. I think so a lot of people do miss out, and it sells out so quickly as well. It's a real pain.
Yeah, me and Joe are going to split one of these boxes, aren't we, mate?
Oh yeah, I'm all over Jazar and Incubi. I think I'm going to try and pick up another squad of Incubi somewhere, and then maybe pimp out a raider or something for them, so they can fly around in there.
Yeah,
it'd be really nice to see Incubi crew. On them. I think there was in one of the Path of the Dark Elder books. I think more the Incubi bodyguard. He sort of takes some time where he's like the gunner on one of the raiders or Tantaluses, and that's really cool.
Look at that.
That is wicked.
But do you reckon we're going to see any more of the Eldar Special Forces, as it were, released in plastic?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
but
we
do you reckon
will.
it's going to be soon, though? Do you reckon Games Workshop's going to be trolling?
I want to throw down and say no.
Because I don't think they are either. I reckon this is it. One and done. Move on to the next book.
I'm with Joe.
Yeah.
Well,
I think it's definitely it for this sort of book, as it were. But eventually in a few months they're going to have to release everything separately. So whether you'll get a surprise, I don't know. I think talking to some friends, this could be it for 8th for Drakari. But actually, we're really lucky to be to get this supplement, to get the new obsessions. It's definitely a game changer, and hopefully, I think Drakari are still in quite a good place. I think they're not where they were a year ago. I think a lot of people have figured out how to beat 9 Talos, and the meta's advanced. Like, a year ago I was able to deep strike Ravagers turn 1. I can't do that anymore. And there's some of the missions and ITC that always favour Drakari. A lot of players do well, but I think, Codex creep hasn't really been a thing that much in 8th, but I think the recent release of Iron Hands is that's proper Codex creep. But maybe this Drakari release will be. Maybe there'll be a massive combo in there, which everyone's like, why on earth they allowed that. But it's every army has their time in the sun. I spent a lot of time with Drakari and Dark Elder. Back in 5th did okay. 6th started out okay until the book came out. The book came out just before Decurion, and then I spent a lot of time in 7th, getting tabled and losing a lot of games, but also honing the blade. And obviously, Drakari are good, and if your army is good, celebrate that, enjoy it. And if you get salty about people, bandwagoning onto your army, then more for you, because the more stuff that sells from your army, it's obviously a lot more likely they're going to get supported in the future, and it's even more people to share the fun with as well. And discuss tactics.
Yeah, totally, man. I think at some point we'll see. This is the thing. We can't. On the Drakari side of things, the Incubi kind of represents the last, one of the last plastic requirements for the list. There's a few beasts, and there's the grotesques. But bar that, I think you're pretty much content complete in plastic now after this release, right?
Well, you still got Lilith.
Yeah, okay, some characters and some other things, but not discount. Yeah. Like, characters are what they are, right? I mean, if you wanted to, you could use the plastic succubus as Lilith, although it wouldn't be nearly as cool or as good, but you could do it theoretically.
Yeah.
Whereas,
they're certainly in a good place. That obviously the characters and the court models aside, it's mainly, I think, what is it, mandrakes that are still sat in fine cast.
Yeah, true. Forgot about them. Yep, mandrakes.
Which is really cool. Yeah, the beasts definitely be good in that sense. It'd be nice to see something new as well. Obviously, Drakari players are spoilt back in 2010 with all these releases, but it'd be nice to see a new unit. I'd love to see grotesques, but I do wonder if they'd sell. I think the amount of what they called crypt horrors. That I think most people that want grotesques have them already, have the conversions. But obviously, I'd love to see the original models, the proper models from G-Dubs.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, though. Isn't it? I mean, from a Drakari perspective, it's fine. It's mandrakes, it's grotesques, it's beasts, and it's a few characters. From a Craftworld Eldari perspective, I mean, even this box set's hilarious because they're giving you 2 of the oldest plastic vehicle kits in the game. Like, the Viper, I think, got released in, I'm going to be spitballing this, but 95? 94?
95, 96, I think.
Yeah. So that thing's been around for 24 years. And the Falcon came out around the same time. I think it came out a little later, maybe 97. So these 2 vehicles they've got bundled in here represent 2 of the oldest vehicle kits in, current GW print runs. And then you've got that kind of juxtaposition with these fantastic brand new Banshee models. But yeah, I mean, look, fire dragons, warp spiders.
Dan, you're not suggesting that they're bundling the oldest models they've got lying around into a box with the newest models everyone wants to buy, are you?
I think I already came out and said that, but yeah, 100%. This is, don't get me wrong. So I'm going to be buying the box set from Triple Helix for £105, splitting it with Joe, and then I'm going to be trading in a Falcon and a Viper, because I have no use whatsoever, because they are not going to get used. So I don't know how much that's going to bring down the cost of my Banshee and Jane Zar combo, but hopefully it'll be a very acceptable £30 or something of that effect.
What happens if they come out with brand new rules for those 2 models?
Well, maybe I'll consider it. But,
Phil, do you want to go in on one of these box sets?
I have 0 interest. I mean, lovely models, expensive, I guess, but like I said, you can split it. But obviously, I wouldn't want it. It's not probably even a particularly good starter box if you wanted to get into that army. I don't know, Dan or Paulie, what do you think? If you were to get into that as a new army, do you think that box is particularly good?
I guess, if you look at it, that you'd have to start collecting box first. Potentially, it's not bad to start rounding out an army. Hellions are pretty duff right now, but again, they might be good in the new rules. Scourges are okay. I don't think it's a bad. If you were to split it with a friend, it's not a bad Drakari contingent. it doesn't form the most competitive of armies, but at the moment, in 2 weeks' time, Drakari will be different competitively. One would assume.
From a Elder or Craftworld perspective, yeah, it's a terrible starting box. Unfortunately, it doesn't. The only thing you can fill out with this is you can't even fill out a patrol. So you haven't got enough for a vanguard. You haven't got enough for a patrol. You haven't got enough for a spearhead. So from a detachment perspective, you can only run this force as unbound, which obviously only leaves you open to kind of like narrative play scenarios. Even if you were to buy that and the start collecting box, the only option you would get is to run the whole thing as a spearhead, because you'd then have 2 elite choices, because you'd have the Wraith Guard and the Banshees. You'd have 2 HQ choices, because you'd have the Farseer on foot and Jane Czar. But then you'd have the War Walker, the Falcon, and the Wraith Lord, which would give you free heavy support. So yeah, if you had a start collecting box in this, but what you would have there is a mishmash, horrible Elder army that doesn't do anything, especially what you would want an Elder army to do. The trick of the Elder army is, well, let's not get into that. But this is pure reinforcements for a long-standing Craftworld Elder collector. You would not want this in isolation. If you're starting Elder, don't bother with this. Get something else, because your money can be spent better. Obviously, though, if you desperately want the Jane Czar model, then jump right on in. But my suspicion with the way Phoenix Lords appear and look, they've got some very, very good rules. They're going to require, Jane Czar in particular is going to require a very aggressive delivery mechanism, and I don't think she's going to be able to be that effective when she gets there. So I think I cannot see Jane Czar being competitive. So if you're looking at this as a competitive option, or even just a kind of broader kind of option to experience the Elder army, I just don't think it will give you enough to work with. I think to try and succinctly kind of conclude this point, Elder as a list is made up of lots of different aspects, thus the aspect warrior conundrum, unless of course you're spamming flyers. And if you're going to take aspect warriors, you need Dire Avengers, you need Dark Reapers, and you need things like Banshees to perform their individual roles and functions and come together as a whole. Just having Banshees and a Falcon is not going to win you any games, or even be remotely playable. 9 times out of 10, I would imagine that Drakari list will blow away this Craftworld Eldari list. When the best thing in your army is a Falcon, you know you're in trouble.
There's not much anti-armor, so it's the Scourges. But a fun fact, that Dark Elder army in that box is actually Witch Cult, because everything else is mercenaries or a transport.
There you go.
On to question number 2.
Christ, it's question number 2. That was
for those
half an hour.
So, moving on to question number 2. Resetting those buzzers, which I did 30 minutes ago. Up now, available to pre-order, is the first of a very special kind of new, not model, but some would say figure, that you can now pre-order from the Games Workshop.
Just made a serious
Paulie's buzzed in early. What do you think the question's going to be, Paulie?
Oh, his agents are back on it.
Agents Effects, 4CP. Is it the Bandai Space Marine action figure, man?
That is not the answer to the question.
Oh, you rolled a 1!
Rolled a 1.
You did not seize. Okay, I'll continue. And available for pre-order now is a Primaris Intercessor Space Marine action figure. But no, I'm not going to do that. So it's produced by Bandai. It costs 75 of your good English pounds if you're purchasing from the UK store. But how long will you have to wait until it is dispatched?
I've got a tiny chainsaw.
I know this.
Joe's buzzed in.
Is it 3 months?
Just for the cool kid with
It is not 3 months. Dan, you buzz next.
It's something mental, isn't it? It's like 9 months. There's a number that comes into my head.
What is 9 months in days? What is 9 months in days?
Is it 9 months?
Don't know. I've got to get my calculator out now.
Oh, flipping heck. It's like 300 days or something, isn't it? Like 260 or something mental.
Hold on, I should have. You're supposed to answer in days.
Oh, sorry.
No, you were correct. It is 270 days
Yay!
or 9 months.
9 months. It was part of that pamphlet they did where they were like, buy the first 9,000 and we'll get it to you at some point. It's like, okay.
Yeah, it's part of their new elaborate, almost crowdfunding campaign to get a Bandai Primaris Intercessor Space Marine action figure, Ultramarines only at this time. Yeah, but you place your pre-order and then it will be dispatched within 270 days.
Jesus, you're gonna forget you even ordered it by the time.
Which is a good barrier to kind of level up put there, because Forge World won't tell you that.
Yes.
What happens if you move home and forget about it?
Well, then you've wasted £75, mate.
You're not allowed to move for 9 months, Joe.
Oh, Jesus.
That's a good question. Can you change the delivery address?
Get it delivered to your local GW store.
Have any of you guys pre-ordered one that would know?
I definitely haven't pre-ordered one. It's the middle of the month and I've got Jane Zars to pay for.
No, I haven't either. It's doesn't really appeal to me personally.
Right, the pop model made sense because that was only a tenner, but not this madness.
You getting one, Paulie?
No, I'm definitely in the same position as you. Where, if it was a Cabalite Warrior, I'd have got 10. But no, it's some people say it's really expensive. I've never bought an action figure since the Jurassic Park ones back in '93 or something. But
crikey, that is some time ago.
Yeah, no, it's no, I haven't. I'm not into collectibles in that sense. I have some Lego, but other than that, no. I don't know. £75, is that around the same price as other similar action figures?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've spent, I've spent larger sums of money on smaller figures than this one. This one's actually of a relative size. I think again, I can't remember exactly, but I think it's a good size, bigger than because I think there was a picture, wasn't there, with it standing next to a Warhammer miniature to give you a sense of scale. Yeah, I mean, I've bought some die-cast action figures from Bandai and other similar kind of companies that have cost me hundreds of pounds. So yeah, no, it's not expensive for what it is. Is it? I don't know. It just doesn't work for me, unfortunately. It's a shame. I would like it to. But
I think it's really cool, but this goes for most things that Games Workshop sell, but you don't have to buy it. They'll release something, you'll be like, oh, it's expensive. Don't buy it. But if your friend buys it and wants it, then celebrate that, celebrate the success. But it's you don't need to get a lot of people get their knickers in their twists about the prices of things or not liking something. If you don't like the model, don't buy it.
Yeah, totally agree. It's weird, isn't it? Because I sort of feel a sense of, an inbuilt sense of, kinship to the Games Workshop company, that everything they do, I feel like I need to support if it's in relation to 40k. And in 99% of cases, I do, but this is just one where, kind of like that Marvel comic announcement that they did, that maybe is a conversation that I shouldn't get into because Richie probably wants to ask a question about it. But, again, that's something that leaves me relatively cold. I'm just like, great, see if it's good. I don't necessarily care on principle, but it might be good. Wait and see, I guess.
Next up we have one of our guest publication questions, which we try and test this out the other day. So we'll see how this goes. So this week's guest publication is a great source of knowledge for you Warhammer fans, Spiky Bits. And I'm going to read to you one of their recent headlines, but I'm going to remove some of the words. And you have to guess what I've removed. There will be bonus points for comedy answers. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jolly good. Okay. Question 1. Rumours. Plastic what on the way?
It's just for the cool kid.
Dan's buzzed in.
Incubi.
It is not. It is not Incubi.
Yeah.
No, and that's not that funny either.
No, I know. I couldn't think of anything funny in the internet.
Joe!
The pressure. I thought someone was in before me.
I'm assuming if it's been released like in the last 24 hours, I'm going to assume No Mortalis.
Well, there we go. Joe gets a point for getting the question right.
Don't sound so sad about it.
He wants
Phil,
funny answers. He wants
Phil and Paulie have the opportunity to get funnier
Yeah,
answers.
but I want to get points. I'm not even on the board at this point.
Wait, what? Now, mate, you got one.
Phil, have you got a funny answer?
I was going to say plastic Primarchs.
Oh, that's one of their favourites because they love
Yes,
the
exactly.
clickbait, don't they?
Could be any of them.
No, I'm not. That's not. I'm not think that's funny. Paulie, what have you got?
Well, plastic pigeon. I think a plastic pigeon would be quite an interesting kit to have.
A full-size pigeon?
Probably mid-sized, really. I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'd be able to. How many they'd sell, what armies they go into, but I think that'd be quite a stumping sort of thing.
Yeah. Plastic pigeon.
Plastic pigeon. Yeah, you know, none of those ideas were particularly funny.
Brilliant. There you go.
I'll level with you.
Yeah, it's pretty rubbish. I'm not gonna lie.
But we set the tone for the...
we set the tone. I mean, there was 5 points available for Primaris Lieutenant, just so you know.
Oh, really? Oh, you already preordained...
I was like, yeah.
Primaris
I preordained some
Lieutenant
specific
as the most
answers.
important. Okay.
I mean, Primaris Lieutenant might be a good answer regardless.
There you
For
go.
Do
anything.
you have an air horn on cue whenever someone says that word?
I don't have it on cue, but I can get it.
There you go.
So it'd be like,
I feel like I'm
So,
going to have to edit that in.
yeah, it's from my phone, so it's not that good.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the correct answer was Zone Mortalis is apparently on the way.
There you are.
Does that excite anybody?
I didn't buy it when it was at Forge World because it was super expensive. And the problem that Games Workshop have got now is that they're too far behind the curve because every MDF laser cut terrain supplier has got their own version of it, and it's going to be cheaper than whatever GW produced in plastic.
Expensive.
Yeah.
But it's going to be really good, though. Because the problem with MDF stuff is MDF looks like MDF, even if it's laser cut and layered. Whereas plastic will be super nice.
Plus, it's a pain in the arse to build. You ever tried putting together one of those MDF kits?
Dan, you like
You're
buying
right.
scenery you'll never use.
I use a great deal of my scenery. Seeing as I'm the house of gaming, it's essential that I buy scenery. Otherwise, you lads would have nowhere to play games.
I actually built one of those Zone Mortalis MDF kits, and I can confirm it was horrible.
It's awful, isn't it? They're the worst. MDF kits, when they're all put together, they're rather lovely, but you don't really want to witness someone doing it. It is a painful process. Because what is the one most consistent thing that someone marketing MDF kits has to spend a lot of time reassuring people is that it's easy and fun to put together. And you know they're lying. It's like, this is complete nonsense. Look at this. This is horrible.
It's not like one of those little wooden dinosaurs that you get from the zoo, is it?
No.
It's horrible to put together. And also, it's relatively easy to put together and simple and basic, but boring. But the real struggle is once you've built it, is to put detail into it and make it look like it belongs on the table. Because a lot of the time with those kits, you're just making square blocks with no detail.
Yeah.
And that doesn't look 40k. It doesn't look gothic. It doesn't look like it's decrepit or anything.
No, I remember there was one guy did a Kickstarter once for like papercraft scenery, and it was all like reinforced with like little buttresses made out of like cocktail sticks and stuff. And I was like, yeah, mate, I admire your ingenuity at creating a really beautiful series of papercraft terrain, but there ain't no way that someone's actually going to sit and build all of that in their own time. Like literally 0.1% of the 40k fan base will purchase this, and of that 0.1%, maybe a third of them will get halfway through building it. It's such a niche of a niche of a niche.
GW are always going to have the benefit of their kit if it's going to be better than everyone else's.
That's not technically true at all, but it's widely available and
in this current situation, the options are second-hand Forge World Zone Mortalis kits, MDF, or 3D printing, which isn't available to everyone, and more often than not looks terrible. Because when you actually pick up a 3D printed model, it's got like loads and loads and loads and loads of little lines in it, which you can sand down to get rid of it, but then that becomes a weird time/money divided by effort kind of system comes in then.
Yeah.
And it's like, would it have been easier just to spend a bit more money, or probably a little bit less money, because 3D printers are really, really expensive?
So, next question in our guest publication round is ITC swoops in to fix blank abuse.
You have just made a serious mistake.
First in was Paulie.
So I think this is referring to, there was an image of 3 repulsors really, really high up in some ruins. So I don't know whether it was to fix flyers.
I'm torn because I'll give you a point because you're halfway there, but you're not got it right, and it wasn't a particularly funny answer. Next up, Joe.
That's fair enough.
You can go funny, or you can either go for funny, or you can go for finishing off the answer.
It's the cat-based "if I fits, I sits" terrain rule.
I'll give you that. I'll give you a point for that, Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is the story that the ITC has swooped in to fix 40k fly keyword terrain abuse. The bonus point would have been if you could refer to where this came from, and Paulie was absolutely right. It was that image that was doing the rounds of those 3 repulsors balanced on top of some ludicrously high building. And the ITC has said, enough's enough, no. It's now, they brought in a new rule which can be summarized: if it sits, it fits, which stops shenanigans with repulsors, but also anything with the fly keyword. So Eldar flyers and transports as well are also subject to this. They have to be able to sit completely and not overhang any ledges when they're on a building now.
But what does that mean? Like, if it's because on that picture, the 3 repulsors did fit within that building and were balanced.
The floor that they are set on is smaller than the size of their base.
So they basically the floor now needs to basically be the same size as the hole.
So the rules verbatim are fly keyworded vehicles can only be placed if the base entirely fits, and then for models where you measure from the hull, the entire vehicle must fit and not spill off over the edge of the terrain piece.
Yeah. But that still doesn't affect repulsors, because repulsors have a base. So as long as that base fits,
it does, because they're measured from the hull model. So repulsor can't overhang, so it affects things like repulsors, but also we've all seen it like Eldari and Drakari vehicles, skimmers, etc., just all managing to somehow squeeze into impossible gaps which they're hanging over. All of that has now been addressed by the ITC.
Kind of sucks for Ravagers though, because you need to hide those Ravagers on top of buildings to keep away from Gallants. Or just knights in general.
The ITC have found a solution. So there you go. You have to abide by it, Joe. You, the other day, were saying that the ITC is the bestest. Therefore, you must agree with what they've decided.
I didn't say it was the bestest.
You did.
No, I didn't. I said I enjoy it, but I prefer Eternal War.
Is that true, Joe? There was a whole thread the other day of you going on about how ITC is the be-all and end-all of 40k gaming.
I think it's the end game for 40k gaming.
There you go.
In terms of that,
I think it still looks like a lot of bookkeeping to me.
Well, it's true. Can I say that my answer to the question was going to be global warming? Would that have been funny?
That would have been pretty funny, but
yeah. But obviously the moment's
it only works if the funny answers come in first. So
that's why I was trying to get
see how we can go. Yeah.
I thought I'd get in there, but it was difficult. It's difficult to think about being. Again, the whole the format. It needs work, doesn't it? Because then
it needs more time doing it. We're getting the swing of things, and then
he is pulling from spiky bits, so the answer is normally plastic Primark.
Yeah, fair point.
So you love you laugh to it then when Joe says it, but when I say it, you're like, that's not a funny answer.
It's in the delivery, Phil. You're just not naturally funny.
Damn it!
So now I get more. I'm tempted to give Joe a point for that, but I won't.
Oh.
Yeah, take that, Joe.
Okay.
Back off.
Okay. So now you guys get the roughs approach we're going for. This is the last question in this round this week, which is in the guest publication round. And the question is, and remember, we want to go for funny answers first because it should be painfully obvious what the actual answer is for this one. The question is, and some of you might know because I tested it on you the other day. So blank isn't as bad for 40k as you think.
Oh, I was going to go dark with the funny answer, but I can't really do that.
Joe's buzzed in.
12
No,
flyers.
dirty, sir.
Was
Rifles
it?
are clean.
12 flyers is what he said.
Oh, 12 flyers. No, that's not. And I feel let down because there's a lot of weird echoing when you did that, and I couldn't hear your answer properly. So I can't give you that because the moment was ruined. Sorry,
Can I
Joe.
just change it to Eldar players then?
That is pretty funny. I'll give you a point. Phil was next. What isn't as bad?
Is it Iron Hands Leviathans?
You know what? I'm taking a point off you for that because we just explicitly said we wanted funny answers, and then you gave the actual answer.
I didn't realise that was the actual answer. No, well.
So you're -1 now, Phil.
Brilliant.
What was the question?
The correct answer was the Iron Hands Leviathan isn't as bad for 40k as you think.
I was going to say the YouTube comment section, but obviously no good there.
But I'll give you a point. That's pretty funny though.
Yeah, exactly.
Dan thought I was mad, but I figured out that you can kill an Iron Hands Leviathan with 90 Iron Hands Heavy Volters.
Yes, for 900 points.
Surely there's something more efficient that you can use to kill a Leviathan
Oh,
reliably.
yes, definitely. As we figured out, it's 6 Siege Breaker Cohort Centurions with a Chapter Master, a Lieutenant, and a Chaplain on top for good measure.
Yeah. You don't need the Chaplain, though. You can get it done. In fact, you don't even need the Lieutenant. You just need the Chapter Master.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you get the job done.
Yeah, the mortal wound spam is real. There's a lot of mortal wounds coming your way.
So what do you think? Do you think the Iron Hands Leviathan is all that bad?
I think... So at the minute I've been playing around with the idea of a Iron Hands Leviathan and 2 Repulsor Executioners because I think that's probably the optimal spearhead configuration at 1750. I think if you spam out...
Only 2?
Yeah, well, because I think the thing is if you spam out too many Repulsors, you miss out on the benefits of the Leviathan, and then vice versa. If you go all in on the Dreadnought stuff, you're not getting... I think the sweet spot is 2 Repulsors, 1 Leviathan. I think that's going to get you the most bang for your buck. But then also, I'm also thinking that actually 1 Storm Cannon and 1 Siege Claw is actually potentially a viable option, because the thing that most people are adopting is the strategy of, oh, don't worry, just charge it. Well, all of a sudden, people start looking at it going, well, hang on a second here, because if I charge it, it's just going to mulch me. So maybe I don't want to do that either.
What about 2 Leviathans, both of them with the Storm Cannon and the Siege Claw? Because then you're still getting the same amount of Storm Cannon, but twice as much punchy.
It's true, but the thing is, the amount of shooting is, massively compensated for by the Repulsor Executioner, because that thing pumps out so many shots, it's unreal. And I think the thing is that, as I say, it's just sort of thinking about the things that people kind of approach a Leviathan Dreadnought with. Most people go, oh yeah, well the fix to these guys, just charge him. It's like, well, if that's the one thing that fixes the problem, take the thing that means that they won't do that, because no one is going to charge a Leviathan if it's got a combat weapon anymore, because you just wouldn't, would you? Because the thing would just go, cool, there's
well,
5
you would with
dead
hordes.
things.
But exactly, if you've got a 20-man squad of plague bearers, it's like losing 5 men doesn't actually make a difference. It's a horde unit is the thing that would lock that in combat for a couple of turns and make it useless.
You need to remember that the Iron Hands Leviathan hits on 5s in Overwatch.
It does, and it's got 2 heavy flamers, and also though as well, the thing you also to remember is that you use the repulsors to screen it and do other weird stuff with as well. I just sort of think, I don't know, I'm not suggesting 100% that the Siege Claw and, Storm Cannon is the optimum build. I just think it just gives a little bit more points flexibility in some regards. Admittedly, it's only like a 16-point difference between the options. But you also get the Melter Gun in there as well, which gives you an extra little bit of, potential anti-tank fun should you need it at relevant ranges. I just think, again, I don't know. I think the 2 Storm Cannons are obviously really, really good, but I think there are certain instances, I've seen instances where certain types of speedy, durable units are hurled at you early game, and having the Leviathan being able to turn around to, say, a unit of Shining Spears and go, oh, cool, you want to come and try and wrap me up, do you? Cool, well, I'll just kill 4 or 5 of you, and then you're not a problem anymore. And then, that's a much better situation to find yourself in than getting wrapped, doing your 5 attacks, not scoring, or scoring a few wounds, but resulting in no meaningful casualties because you're AP 0, and they'd get their free up armor save or free up invulnerable save with Shining Spears still dealing all that nonsense. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking about that, but yeah, they are really, really tough, and the thing they're really tough against is taking anti-tank shots. I heard somewhere that you'd need to shoot I don't know, it was something ridiculous, like a truckload of las cannons at them every single turn to kill them. But the thing is that because you can use the Dreadnought stratagem to half the wounds, and then you use the Ironstone to reduce the wounds by 1. Even if a las cannon gets 5 damage off on you, that 5 damage just becomes 2, because the 5 becomes 3. And then the 3 becomes 2 because of the Ironstone, because you use the multipliers before the minuses. So yeah, you half it, and then you take the 1 off. So if a las cannon did 4 damage to you, it still only does 1, which is bonkers.
I think that's the biggest weakness to the Iron Hand is the characters, because you need them to get the buffs off.
Yeah.
So you having snipers, or was it eliminators? Is it eliminators that ignore line of sight?
Yeah.
And it's they're the ones you'll need to take if you're doing Space Marines.
Yeah. The only issue with the eliminators that ignore line of sight is they don't do mortal wounds. There's no negative AP to their shooting. So they're not as efficient as you might think.
Yeah, well, maybe just regular snipers is the way to go then.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, you've got to remember, and that I discovered on the weekend with mine, is that people forget that there's terrain on the board, and bubbles of a character effect still work through walls. So I found in one of my games, I was like, cool, I'll put my captain, my lieutenant, and Ferius on one side of the wall, and then the Leviathan on the other side of the wall. And now you can't hurt them at all. So
it's a bit filth in it.
Yep, that's kind of how it goes. I mean, I understand that people have rational concerns about them. I think there is definitely reasonable, information out there to suggest that they are really, really broken or really strong. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think, again, as we sort of said, okay, fair enough, you have to take a very, very specific type of unit to deal with them. But I'm confident solutions will be on the way. And if they're not, then I guess GW will eventually get around to addressing things in the Iron Hand book that makes them good. Because I think Leviathans before Iron Hands existed were really good units. They were very balanced. I think they were as powerful as they should have been for 300-something points without being too overpowered. Whereas now, because of Iron Hands... But the thing is, it's not that Iron Hands are just breaking Leviathans. They're breaking everything in Space Marines. Or not everything, but...
No, yeah, it's not the Iron Hands Leviathan that's broken. It's Iron Hands.
Yeah, 100%.
It's broken. Because, to your point, that they should... I think Phil said they should have a weakness. The standard weakness is combat. Yeah. But they have 5-up Overwatch, so they've literally got the one thing to make them survive the combat.
Yeah. They do have a weakness, and that is a lot of strength 4 and 5 single wound damage shots.
Not strength 4, strength 5.
Well, strength 5 is the optimum. But even, my opponent who was playing guard had 9 mortars on the table, which in turn 1 still killed like 7 or 8 intercessors because they're re-rolling all of their to hits kind of thing. They ignore line of sight, and it's just weight of numbers.
Leviathan,
Yeah.
They didn't win the Leviathan, no,
Okay.
because he was like, I'm not going to waste my time firing mortars at a Leviathan, but because I hid it. Whereas because I didn't have the range to get towards Lehman Russet, so I'm like, fine, I'm not going to let you shoot at me for a couple of turns with like 12 heavy bolters. Not that they would have cared, but it's one of those things of like, the rest of my army died very quickly to massed firepower.
Mm.
So the one thing, their one weakness is the one area where they're still better than regular Marines at dying.
Yeah, but you got to take away. You can't think of like Dark Eldar, for instance, with Paulie here. He's the primo knowledge on this. Like a Venom spam army is still going to rinse Space Marines. But if you take away all of the Leviathan support, all the stuff that does all the capturing, like, yeah, the Leviathan's probably going to kill all your stuff, but it can't score. How would you deal with a Leviathan, Paulie?
I think I'd run away. I think, yeah, the Iron Hands one, it's difficult, isn't it? That I tend to have a tactic of if there's one big nasty thing, then sometimes I avoid it rather than just unnecessarily, putting firepower into it. I think even, gunning it full of, Disseys and Ravagers, yeah, it becomes 1 wound. I don't know, what's the math hammer on that? So, what's that? 9 hits, maybe 4 wounds if you're lucky, then 2 will go through, then 2 wounds to it. It's difficult. I think Drukhari could have a bad time with the Iron Hands. I think a lot of Drukhari players are moving towards Harlequin allies just for like a large unit or multiple units of Skyweavers just for haywire. I think Scourges are decent, but I think they're quite unreliable in the sense they come down, they'll do their shots, but they might quite easily die. And obviously, a clever...
They do D3, don't they?
Yeah, say what you're putting out 4D3 shots. So yeah, you'll get some mortal wounds in there, but Leviathan, is it 18 wounds? Am I over doing that?
Just 14, isn't it?
14.
They're 14, but if you only do like 6 wounds to it, the Iron Hands player will heal all of those straight up next turn.
Yeah, so that's the difficulty. I think, again, Talos, will Talos even get nearby? I don't know. I think it's difficult. I think it's, like you said earlier, whether you just play to kill everything else. I think Flayed Skull are very good against Marines.
What about...
Because a lot of the Marines are very good at towing cover, where I play, generically pure Black Heart, and actually, it's quite difficult trying to, you put those poison firepower into Marines, but they're all on 2-up saves, so it's actually quite hard to shift them, whereas Flayed Skull are quite good in that regard.
What about a big witch bomb? Like go in there and tie them up.
Yeah, against obviously the shard nets only work against infantry, but I've had some success, especially sort of for some reason I do a lot of Helverins. I tend to tie up Helverins running 15 witches in there because obviously the shard nets don't work. But obviously if you can block its base out, then you crack on. And again, I think witches have been like one of my favourite things that I've used this year, and I'm really looking forward to see what they do with the obsessions. Obviously, Cursed Blades, my favourite obsession for Witch Cult. But again, if there's a reroll charge, if there's different benefits, anything which makes them more resilient, I'm looking forward to that. I think witches are definitely underrated, but at the same time, I do understand that, there's a very clear-cut recipe of Cabal and Coven does do well because Coven are resilient and Cabal fast and hit hard.
Next question. Okay, first up, what are the scores so far? For those playing back home, in last place with -1 is Phil.
Take that, Phil.
In third place with 2 is Dan.
Yay!
In second place with 3 is Joe.
Yeah.
But in the lead with 4 is Paulie.
Yeah.
So we have a few questions left, all to play for still. Next question. Okay, here we go. It's a little bit of a cryptic one. What comes every 2 weeks, but this week came early?
It's just for the cool kid with asthma.
Oh, Dan has buzzed in.
Is it the oh god, no, hang on. It's the Voxcast podcast.
I'm sorry, Dan. You've gone wrong. No, you didn't know the answer. You've guessed, and you just pressed the buzzer, and then you tried to think of something.
No, I just couldn't remember the name of it. The Voxcast Warhammer 40,000 podcast from Games
It
Workshop.
is not the Voxcast Warhammer 40,000 podcast.
Okay, sorry.
So get back in your box.
Oh, sorry, it comes every 2 weeks, so it's very good.
Men
show.
are dirty, sir.
Yeah, but did it come early this week?
I don't know. I assumed it did. That's why I said it.
This is Phil buzzed in next. This is his opportunity to answer. Come on, Phil.
Okay, go on,
It's for Adeptus. It's for Sisters of Battle Bulletin.
It is the Battle Sister Bulletin, and can you tell me why it's come early, or why one would suspect it came early?
I think the previews of the box got leaked, so they had to release it a bit earlier than normal.
That is correct. It is this bi-weekly Battle Sister Bulletin was a week early, possibly due to leaked images appearing on the internet over the weekend.
Who could say?
Have you had a chance to check out the latest official images of the Battle Sister Bulletin?
I have. They're very nice. The the Arco-Flagellants look really good, and I like how they tied it into the old Inquisitor game. So they look really cool, and then the box as a whole looks pretty good. I would, if I wasn't already doing the marine project that we're going to be talking about a little later, then I'd probably be picking it up.
I'm of the opinion that they are some really, really beautiful miniatures, but I just don't care enough, and I have enough projects that I've never finished without needing to pick this one up. So I don't want to seem overly negative today. It seems like I'm on a bit of a downer about GW stuff at the minute, like the action figure and now the sisters. I think the sisters are incredible. I think loads of people are rightly very, very excited for them. I am as well. It's going to be great to see them back on the tabletop and back in the game, because I think they've been long overdue a release, and like the Drakari release of 9 years ago, this is going to be a really significant, exciting time for players who have, stuck by their favourite army through thick and thin over the last, 20 years or however long it's been since their original kind of conception. But yeah, I love the models, love the sculpts. Really think the lady with the whip, that looked kind of cool with all the things going on around that, and just the infantry themselves, they're just super gorgeous. And I think that black and white colour scheme that they've used with the black helmets with the white kind of like faceplate thing just is an absolutely gorgeous scheme for that list as well, and all that range. So yeah, love it. Not going to buy it because I know I'm not going to get around to getting on and doing anything with it until probably middle of next year. So I'll worry about it when I'm in a position to actually want to buy it or actually build and play it. But for the meantime, I'm going to hold back and let someone who actually does want it get their hands on it. I just don't want to be another one of those dirty scalpers. That's basically where I'm coming from.
I have to say that the lady with the whip, while she looks great, it looks like that whip is going to break off at some point, either when you're playing the game or if you're like transporting it, because it's just so huge in comparison to the rest of the model, and it looks pretty flimsy. It's a disaster waiting to happen.
Is that like the what they called, the Night Haunts from Age of Sigmar? Is that what they're called? The ghouly creatures that they released recently. I was sort of interested in them as an army, and I remember when they released the new AOS box set, I went into a GW store and I picked up one, and I was like, my god, this is the flimsiest thing ever. And I said to the guys, I was really interested in this army until I saw the miniature, or picked up a miniature and realised that these will never ever stay in one piece. So I just was like, I'm out. I'm not going to collect an army that is going to fall apart every single time I try and use it. So yeah, I guess same thing applies here, but for one very specific miniature as opposed to the whole range, I guess.
And I'm really excited for the Seraphim because I love those. I think those models look really cool. I've always wanted to get a Seraphim themed army, So I'm looking forward to picking up Celestine and as many Seraphims as I can get my hands on to make a cool little detachment, which is just these drop angels. I think that'll be really cool.
I just hope they fix their acts of faith to be like how they used to be. Because
cheaty and brilliant.
Well, yeah, like the moment Celestine lost her double move, like you never saw her on the table again. Right, I just kind of felt
I can tell you. Oh, go on, Joe. Sorry.
I know. I was gonna say I just kind of felt like all the Sisters players kind of disappeared the moment that they actually got their beta rules.
I can tell you, having used the Act of Faith and No Retreat with my Crusaders, they are pretty rubbish, and they don't go off half the time when you want them to.
Yeah, because they used to go off all the time, and now they only go off a very small amount of times, and you still have to roll.
Yeah,
and now you have to also roll to make them happen.
And you effectively have to spend points to make that happen as well, which I kind of like as a mechanic to sort of potentially force you to theme your army in a certain way. But when you think about like guard orders just go off automatically, and then these ones you have to pay points and roll for them. So, for example, the fight again, or fight twice in the fight phase, you've got to roll a 5 up, which never went off in any of the games. Because you firstly got to get the thing into combat and then you've got to put it off. So I think I only tried it like twice maybe, and both times it's like, I didn't roll a 5. So, oh well.
Did anyone else notice that the actual Sisters models that they've got, like the rank and file infantry, they've got essentially 3 different poses that they've doubled up with helmetless and helmeted, to try and kind of show you that there's... It's one of those things, when I first looked at it, I was like, oh, they've only got like 3 poses for the bolt gun girls. But there you go.
I get the feeling they're like sort of easy build versions, a bit like the Primaris. So I imagine there'd be more multi-pose versions down the line once they release them individually.
It seems to me like the guys at GW kind of went, oh god, this project is taking way longer than we imagined it would do, and we want to make sure that when we do this, it's going to be the best it can be. But at the same time, we did sort of promise that we'd release these guys before the end of the year. So here's a box that kind of contains everything. Come back next year when we get it actually done, because we've ran out of time, and this is the best we could do with what we had at this moment. Which makes sense. I mean, it's a good way of honouring their but their promises to their fan base, while still, giving something quite substantial to tide people over. I could easily imagine people buying 3 or 4 of these box sets and building armies out of them and so on, which is no bad thing for the good people of GW, I'm sure.
I think the poses look really cool, but I don't think there'll be that many variations of them, because they've got all the detail of their robes. It'd be hard to do that in a multi-part kit like you can do with, say, Space Marines.
Yeah, GW have moved away from multi-part kits these days as well. I think, as a concept, they're very much more in favour of creating dynamic, interesting poses and giving that sort of agency or that power back to their, hobbyists to create and, craft their own conversions out of what they give you, because obviously it's all in plastic, so it's very easily managed and dealt with. Again, if you look at Paulie's army, for example, it's loaded with all sorts of inventive and interesting conversions from all sorts of single pose or existing kits and things. And I think that's very much what they kind of go for now, because at the end of the day, these look more dynamic than had they given you the ability to twist the torso or put the arms in different places, I guess.
I counted it out recently that I'd used over 70 different kits to make my army, which is almost embarrassing how I've used so many random different models. It's a running joke with my friends that anything sort of elfy, I'll just shove a splinter rifle in there, paint it orange and black, and call it done.
Yeah, exactly. Boom. Trakari. Welcome to the Dark City. Get on with it.
That's it. But it does, without going off on a tangent, it does follow the theme that all the sort of the Corsairs and Cabalites, that rallied to Duke's banner, that he's basically a massive celebrity in the They come from sort of all, walks of life. There's, guys that have, renegades from the craft worlds that have left. That some of them, from the different aspect shrines, and they just pick up a splinter rifle and repaint their armor just because they want to follow him.
Yeah.
Want to get up to crazy hijinks and take drugs, which is the pillage and
Yeah. Don't we all?
Drakari whale. That's it.
Second to last question. According to the new teaser for the next issue of White Dwarf, which Warhammer 40,000 model range is getting some new rules?
Men are dirty, sir.
Phil's buzzed in.
It's Sisters of Silence.
It is the Sisters of Silence. Point for Phil.
I feel like I'm woefully out of the loop at the moment on everything that's going on. It's because I had a week off on holiday. I'm well behind.
The real question is why did Games Workshop decide on giving these guys rules and all the other armies they've shown in White Dwarf rules, but not Dark Angels?
Because Dark Angels have rules.
Yeah, but not updated or like some new extra stratagems or anything. They just got like a weird little expose.
It feels like that was a bit more of like a stopgap. Like, Dark Angels have a codex, they've got all their stratagems, they don't really need updating, but it seems like they were just giving them an interesting... Because there's like one sort of custom mission in there, I think, and that's about it. Yeah. And it's just more about background. Because weirdly, so next month or next issue, we don't know there's definitely going to be rules for Sisters of Silence. They just say...
Games Workshop says there's new rules and stratagems.
Ah, right. Oh, that's good. Because sometimes if it just says index whatever, it could just mean, like with the Dark Angels, like it's just background stuff.
No, they said that
normally they mean.
There's new rules and stratagems.
No, right. Well, that's good for them.
Exciting times.
Mm-hmm.
Or they have rules for that Forge World HQ character, so you can finally give them an HQ.
It doesn't make sense because she's like a named character. She'd be dead by now. So.
I know, but it's, Sisters of Silence, isn't it? It's like, oh, well, there's another one,
I mean, they have to do something to kind of make them playable in a themed way.
Agreed.
Okay, here we go. Final question. Who is the first Legion of Space Marines, and which new models have just been released for them that can be played in 40k?
It's just for the cool kid with asthma.
Oh, Dan has buzzed in.
Well, the first Legion is the Dark Angels. And
That's correct, it is the Dark Angels.
And they had some Forge World models released recently, but I didn't realise you could play them in 40k.
I'm going to have to press you for an answer. Phil's buzzed in.
I don't know, mate. Dark Angels, no idea.
No, it's not your go. It's Phil's go.
So Dan is right. Dark Angels got a Forge World release. There was a Leviathan Dreadnought. There was...
That's the correct answer. The correction was the Leviathan Dreadnought.
Oh, just that one, not the others.
No, okay. there was just one, which was the Leviathan Dreadnought.
Can you not use the Praetor as just a Dark Angels captain?
I mean, you could, but it's not got. There's no rules for a Praetor yet.
What about their
there's rules for a captain.
The Contemptor's been out for a while, Dan.
Oh, yeah, fair point.
It is a very cool model. I'm tempted to pick up one myself as a Chaplain Dreadnought conversion.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think if I was to ever possibly do Black Templars, the Leviathan would be a great kind of conversion piece because it's got kind of all the Gothic arches built into it, which I quite like.
I really want the Leviathan and the Contemptor because they have lions moulded onto the knee pads, and that is it. So if anyone buys those,
so you could run them as Iron Hands, you mean?
Yeah.
They've got hands as well. I mean, what more do you want?
Yeah, they got my iron lions. Ironing lions.
That's what you call them from now on. That's a much better chapter name.
Yeah.
And it makes more sense why they'd be Iron Hands.
Yeah.
Okay, well that was the last question in the quiz, and we have the final scores, and it's quite exciting what the final scores are. So in joint second place, we have three of you. In 7 weeks, we have Joe, we have Dan, and we have Phil, all with 3 points apiece. But in first place, holding on to his lead with 4 points, is Paulie.
Yeah.
Meaning that
Well
once
done,
again,
Paulie.
the guest wins the quiz.
If only someone did give me -1 points to start off with.
It's true. I mean, overall, Phil, you did get 4 points, but you also lost a point, so it's your own fault.
No, fair enough.
Fair enough. Sounds reasonable.
You were warned to give a funny answer, not the actual answer. So that was this week's quiz. Thank you for all of those playing along at home. I did get on the old social medias a question from the viewers back at home, but they gave me the question but not the answer. So I can ask the question for everyone except Phil, but Phil has to be the one to say what the correct answer is.
Oh.
So the question was from
Krieg. It's Krieg. The answer is Krieg.
Well, the question was from friend of the show Toke.
Oh yeah.
Which was, whose Death Riders would win in a fight? Phil's Death Corps of Krieg or Toke's Death Corps of Krieg? Now I'm assuming that something happened during your friendly game, Phil, of this, which is why there is potentially an answer for that. But so who's going to get? So Joe, who do you think won?
I'm going to say neither. I'm going to say they both forgot to bring them in by turn 3.
Oh, if we're still playing, I'll give you a point for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a quality answer. Next up was Paulie, and if you know Paulie because you were there at No Retreat, you can't say the right answer.
I was going to say, yeah, I actually watched this game, so I'll watch part of it. I'll bow out of the.
Okay, you can answer. I'll let Dan go, then you can give the answer. So Dan, who do you think won?
Well, because Phil is my long-term buddy, and Toke is a loyal listener, I'm going to go in favour of Toke and throw Phil under the bus and assume that Toke is a far superior player, because that is the only logical conclusion.
Cool. Well, Paulie, how did it go down from your perspective as an independent adjudicator?
I don't actually remember the second half of the game, but all I remember is Toke's army. Do you know what, as a face-up on the battlefield, it looked phenomenal. So I can't remember the exact.
Did it look better than Phil's?
I'm going to go for Toke.
Ooh. So Phil, what was the answer? Who won?
Well, I'll give you a little bit of backstory and explain what happened. So I chucked my Death Riders forwards in a very aggressive manner to screen out his Death Riders to stop them from getting onto an objective that I was trying to hold for a Maelstrom card. So his Death Riders smashed into mine, and his Death Riders killed my Death Riders. However, after that initial action had happened, I still had my Death Rider commander, who I'd given the relic power sword with the Blade of Conquest, and he charged into Toke's Death Rider commander, and I cut him down in a fell swoop and outright killed him. So his Death Riders are better, but I had the better Death Rider commander.
So the answer is Toke, then.
So the answer is Toke. Toke's Death Riders were better, but it's good to know that the Blade of Conquest that you always take did serve a purpose.
Well, actually, I didn't take it in. I think I avoided taking it in all but like one of the actual games because it was just an extra CP that I didn't think was all that necessary. But in our friendly game with Toke, I took it. Yeah.
So have you been, done over, mate? Are you not the superior Krieg person now? People need to start referring to Toke as the #1 Krieg master.
Well, I wouldn't want to give away what happened in the actual game. I could potentially talk about that later if there's time.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. We still need to talk about No Retreat, so why don't we transition to that right now? Woo! So in this segment of the podcast, we're now going to talk to Paulie and Phil, our two, guest commentators, individuals, people who were able to attend the delights of No Retreat. What number was it again? 8? Was it 8?
Yeah, number 8.
No Retreat 8. So, as a relatively incompetent painter and terrible gamer, I wasn't able to attend. But Phil of Lookout Sir fame and Paulie of, Drakari fame as well. I was trying to think of a more Drakari way of saying fame, but nothing came to mind. Nonetheless, yeah, these two gents went along, and we're going to have a quick chat with them about the event, how they thought it went, how they performed within it, any particular kind of highlights. It's going to be a bit of a sort of whistle-stop tour side of things, so we're not going to necessarily get too nit-and-gritty into full battle reports and talking about every individual game as it took place, but I guess the best place to start was, what was the general kind of accommodation, or I suppose general kind of like experience like as a player, putting yourself on a plane and flying yourself over to Gibraltar? How was that as an experience? They look after you well? All good on that front, I assume?
I'll start it off with the precursor that it is just the best event in the world. It is just phenomenal. There are so many different things which take it to a different level. I guess a way to explain it is you almost treated like a VIP. You have to. It's a very exclusive event, and I guess it can be quite. Some of my friends view it quite negatively, that it's quite elitist. But your army has to be of a high standard. Commissioned armies are allowed, so it's not an issue if you can't paint in that sense. But yeah, there is a high level of exclusivity to it. The standard of painting, the 42 people go each year, and from what I understand, there's about triple the amount of that for applicants, and the level of the armies is just phenomenal. There's Golden Demon winners who go there. The armies themselves are outstanding, but it's such a different experience, compared to. I love the indie scene in the UK, across the country and going to the Warhammer World events, but jumping on a plane, flying to Gibraltar, as soon as you get there, the SN team, they pick you up from the airport and they take you to the retreat centre, and it's almost, I think some people explain it like it's like geek camp, that you're taken away and you all stay in the same place. So it's called the retreat centre, and there's lots of sort of seminar rooms where they have all their terrain set up, which is fantastic terrain. I've never played on terrain as good as that at an event. And you all have rooms. Gibraltar is, where is it? Sort of, I'm going to murder this, but it's near Africa. It's that part of Europe. So the weather can get very hot. It used to be twice a year. It's now once a year towards the end of September. So last year I went and it was sweltering, whereas this year it was a lot cooler. And also one of the biggest things they did, they added fans to the room. The rooms, they are very small. You don't spend much time in them. But when it's very, very hot and you've got no aircon in the rooms, it's very difficult. But the venue is phenomenal. The only negative is you're not near town. But then this brings in another part of it where during the event itself, the guys will come around with an iPad and they'll order your lunch. So, they'll give you all your different choices. And then when your game finishes, when it's lunchtime, your food, whatever you ordered, will be there ready for you. It was just really looked after. On the Friday night, they organise it's like an Argentinian barbecue where just all these different cuts of meat. It's just some of the best meat I've ever eaten. You all get together, you have meals. The Saturday night, there's always a big meal organised. Where this year we went for an Italian, and it's. I think what struck me is you go there and everyone's friendly. Everyone introduces themselves. There's no idiots. You are rubbing shoulders with, I guess, what you'd call, sort of the modern day 40k celebrities and influencers. Tabletop Tactics weren't there this time, but they've been to nearly all of them in the past. Obviously, Winters is he's got the biggest channel on YouTube for 40k, right? He's there. Liam from Warhammer, Drop Zone, Deployment Zone, Ace Face, and guys in Twisted Dice, and many more sort of people in their own right. And obviously, it's not about going there to be hey, look at my sort of page and stuff. But people almost gain their own infamy just from going to that event. People almost, a lot of people get quite jealous of those who go there because it is just such an exclusive event, and it's so well run. Like, before every game you go into a seminar room, and Pardo, who sort of is the lead on the event, he'll sort of stand at a podium, and they'll go through all the different sort of before every game you all gather there. It just adds to this sense of just my best way to describe it is theatre almost. It's something else. It's something just amazing entirely, and it's just so really well run. It's just phenomenal.
I agree in the sense that I think, the point I want to make is that I think a lot of TOs really overlook the importance of that theatre or that
100%.
pageantry. I think there is something to be said for gathering players between games and having a proper kind of debrief, and then also properly talking through the kind of pecking order at that time, because I think it really kind of opens up people's understanding to where people are situated within the tournament, what the mission is that we're about to embark upon, and build that up. I started out, the first events I started going to after Warhammer World events back in like the late part of the noughties, kind of early 2010s and all the rest of it. I used to go to these events run by a group called the Tempest Fugitives, which used to do like narrative events, and they had a lot of pageantry involved in what they were doing, and a lot of that was from a narrative perspective. But yeah, I think I've said this before to TOs, and I've often felt like it might be a worthwhile thing to maybe one day get involved in that myself, because I think just having that little bit of like extra TLC goes a long way. But obviously even that doesn't compare to all these extra bits that you're kind of talking about. And Phil will probably talk to his experiences of it as well, but when you talk about your mates that kind of think it's very elitist and very very particular in that kind of way, me and the guys have had similar kind of conversations with Phil about it. There definitely is that angle of it. I mean, speaking from a personal perspective, I'll admit it, I'm just slightly jealous that I'm not involved. When I hear about all the fancy WhatsApp group stuff and all the other stuff, I'm like, I'd really love to get involved on that. Am I not an advocate enough for the hobby now? But my barrier to entry is, and I'm aware of this, is the quality of the painting that I can do, and I think that's always going to be a bit of an issue for me. And I will be throwing in an application this September, or not September. Sorry,
you have to.
Gone, but yeah, I will throw in an application, but I don't imagine I'll make the grade, but I'm going to give it a try, and I'm going to see what I can come up with, because I'd definitely love to go myself. But yeah, one day.
Well, you can, apparently, when you apply and you get rejected, they either give you feedback or you can ask for feedback in terms of, what could I have done to improve my army? And I know a few people that came this year and they said they had applied previous years and they basically got some feedback and used that to actually improve their army for when they were applying this time round. So that does work. The other option is to do the GT. So as Paulie said, they used to do no retreat twice a year. The March slot is now a sort of slightly more generic GT, which is like tickets are sold on a first come, first served. And I think they sold out like in 10 minutes or something ridiculously quick last time. So, and that's for this coming year. And you still get a similar level of, I assume you get a similar level of like tables and gaming experience, but it's a bit more set around like a competitive tournament. So there's no painting standards, for example, to get in or anything like that. But you will get a sort of similar experience. It's not quite as bespoke and tailored, and they don't necessarily do like a WhatsApp group and answer all your questions beforehand that they do at the no retreat. But they do look after you still, sort of probably better than you'd get at a normal GT.
I think there's a hidden meta behind applying for no retreat, in the sense that something they factor in, which I think is great as well, is they try and make it as even a spread as possible.
With the factions, they do.
Yeah. And obviously, there's 5 SN award winners who get automatic entry, and I think the first and best painter potentially get automatic entry as well. So you almost know potentially what armies will be returning, but also you have to be a bit hipster and potentially, if you really want to get in, try and think of an army which not everyone else is doing, because it's fantastic that they try and represent all the different armies, whereas there's a lot of Death Corps of Krieg, that are coming in. So whether the guys that are running those be invited back next year, that if you were to do a Krieg army, it might not be a best shot, but there was only one Tyranid army. I was the sole Drakari. There was only Eldari weren't that well represented. There's only 3 of us in total, 1 from each sort of faction. But I think there's definitely different opportunities, and the standard's so high, but I wouldn't say to not apply. I think again you can get feedback, but it's just such an inspiring event when you just see the level of it out there. And obviously some people are quite talented at painting, whereas I'm not actually the best painter. I just I studied sort of art through sort of school, college and uni, and it's for me it's more about the colour theory and just having imagination and making your army pop, and everyone can do that. Contrast and the washes, everyone can paint. It's just putting your mind to it and making an army which is themed and looks nice on the tabletop.
No, for sure. I think that's the thing. I think my issue's always been a kind of time restraint scenario, and it's relatively self-imposed, I have to admit. But we'll see. I've got a few projects on the go that I need to sort of paint to a good standard to essentially turn up and say, right, well, this is the sort of thing I've got and the sort of thing I can do, and I promise I'll just paint the rest of it to this standard, by crikey. And I imagine, given the relative gauntlet of it, if I get through, maybe that's something I'll just have to get on and do. But let's not dwell on the hypotheticals of what could be in the future. Let's talk about what was. So you arrive, you're treated like a VIP, you come into the place, you've met the people, you're chatting to the people. What was the actual format of the tournament? How many points were your armies? What kind of games were you playing? How did all that work?
So it's 750 points, so sort of a bit like the UK standard, or at least the Warhammer World stuff. It's limited in the fact that there's you get 2 detachments max. One of them has to be a battalion or a brigade, and then the other one doesn't necessarily have to be the same faction that you are. It can be a different one, but there's a sort of a spreadsheet of which it could be. So, for example, Guard, I don't think can take Space Marines, but I think Space Marines maybe can take Guard, or maybe they can't. I'm not entirely sure. It's all kind of thematic around the old sort of Allies matrix predominantly. So most could take a Knight, for example, and I think that's something they're going to look at next time is changing, because there was quite a lot of armies this time with Knights, whereas when I went at No Retreat 7, there was some solo Knight armies, and then I think that was it. There might have been maybe one Knight on the side, but not to the same extent. It was quite prevalent this time around. And the winning, the guy who won it from Twisted Dice, he had like a Chaos, I think it was meant to be Chaos Demons, but his secondary detachment was like 2 or 3 Knights or something ridiculous. So it was predominantly more a Knight army than a Chaos Demon army. So I think that might be something that they're changed going forwards. But even then, you can tweak it slightly. So I took my Krieg, but my secondary detachment was Inquisition. But then for 2 CP, I can also take an Assassin. So you can add on an extra faction that way by taking an Assassin.
It's still quite limiting in that you can only have sort of one trait, like one chapter. So if you have a Space Marine army, your battalion's White Scars, but then if you just have a Spearhead, it has to be White Scars. A similar effect to me, where I chose to have a battalion of Blackheart, and I wanted to run Witches, but because I could only have like one obsession, my Witches had to be just sort of vanilla, which is fine and fun.
Yeah, because originally I was thinking about taking Greyfax as an extra Inquisitor, but there are technically two different ordos for Inquisition, so you can't do it. But which is why I actually realised that Toby was running an illegal list, because he had Custodes and then Inquisition, but he had like one of each Inquisitor. So he had, was it Karazmov, the guy in the kind of mini dreadnought? He had Eisenhorn and he had Greyfax, and I was like, oh, he technically shouldn't have been able to do that because they're different ordos, which breaks the rule about having multiple subfactions.
Look at you, Phil, naming and shaming
people.
But
such a minor thing. I'm like, it's not like you're taking two different Space Marine chapters. It's like Inquisitors, they're not the most competitive thing. So, you know, it is what it is.
The rules is the rules, though, there, Phil. I mean, you know.
Well, exactly. Like, I deliberately didn't take Greyfax because I knew it was against the rules. So I could have gone up to Potter and be like, he's broken the rules. But I doubt it would have made much difference. And it'd be a bit unfair to him to be like, oh, you got to remove those models. I mean, I didn't play him, so, you know,
well,
if I did, if I did, then I might have just casually mentioned it, but be like, oh, let's carry on anyway.
Exactly.
His army was quite fun though, and also it's beautifully painted as well.
Yeah, it's very nice. I think actually we saw it. It was in the cabinet at Heat 2. It was it was that one there. So, so about the mission format, it's quite a weird one. It's the primary. It's split into three: primary, secondary, and tertiary. The primary is an eternal war, which could either be. It's not all chapter approved stuff, so it's a mixture of, like, I think original book, chapter approved 2018 and 2019. The secondary is Maelstrom decks, and you use the rule where you can customize your deck by removing up to 6 cards, which actually makes playing Maelstrom a lot more fun. Because if you know they don't have any psychers, you remove Witch Hunter, for example. But then if you do draw a card that you can't do that turn, you're sort of stuck with it until the end where you can discard it as normal. They also fix the randomness in Maelstrom, so D3 is worth 1 point, and D6 is worth 2 points.
Okay.
I think it's D3 is 2 and D6 is 4.
Is it?
It's unlikely that D3 would result in 1 point.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah. That makes sense. So that also removes the randomness of just rolling really well when you score that, D3 or D6 at the end of the game that would potentially swing it. And then the last one is the tertiary, which is, Slaver Warlord, Linebreaker, First Strike, those ones. And then basically they give you like a combined score. So the game isn't actually done on like a win-loss ratio. It's more due to how well you win. So for example, if on the primary you have 50% more or double, I think if you have like more than 50% victory points than your opponent, then you count as having like a major victory, and then it's like a minor victory, and then like it's on a sliding scale of how well you've done, and that ultimately determines sort of how you place at the end of it, basically.
That makes sense.
Also to note, the deployment changed each game, so basically from whatever source the Eternal War was from, you deployed like that. So the middle mission was almost quite jarring because it was No Mercy, which is obviously rulebook, so it followed the original. Whoever deployed first went first, and then the other missions were like I go, you go, or it was whoever you deploy first gets a +1 to go as well. So it's kind of weird, but it's cool as well.
They did caveat that one because for the I go, you go is quite slow, and I think everyone sort of complained about that one. So on the first mission, he said, look, if you guys don't want to do that and you both agree, then you can just sort of roll off for it and deploy your whole army. Whereas I think my first game of day 2 because I played James Ontario, and it was kill points. So it was actually really important how each of us placed our units. So we both decided we would do the sort of take one unit at a time and deploy it, because it made it sort of much more tactical. Because he had a bunch of despoilers and I had a bunch of Lehman Russ tanks, so it was saving those till last. But obviously, whoever had released, units got to go first, I think. So yeah, that was interesting, the way that sort of format worked. And it takes a bit of getting your head around it. So there's 6 Maelstrom objectives that are pre-placed with stickers on all the tables, equally spaced out, sort of within the middle, sort of almost along the deployment zone, I think, deployment line if you're doing Dawn of War. So that they're all preset and they're just for Maelstrom. And then you place, in addition to that, regular objectives as well, which have to be at least 6 inches from your Maelstrom ones, but 12 inches from the normal ones. So there's lots of objectives on the table, which again takes a bit of getting used to. And obviously one unit can only secure one objective. Yep. So at the end of your turn, you have to declare which one out of the possibilities of the ones that you might have to secure.
You use the random, I can have one unit that scores everything situation.
No, which is good as well, because it limits you from scoring multiple Maelstroms in like one go, but also it's quite important if you're scoring every turn for the primary on like the main Eternal War objectives. Sometimes I've gone, actually, I'm not going to score the Maelstrom that I want to score because I've only got one unit in that area, and it's more important that I get the Eternal War objective this turn. So sometimes you sort of have to throw away a Maelstrom card that you could have scored just because you don't have enough bodies, and going for the Maelstrom is more important. Likewise, if you know you're not going to win the Maelstrom, if you're not going to win the primary, you can try and win the secondary and tertiary, because actually if you win those two, then you win the game overall. So even if you're not going to do too well on the main Eternal War mission, you can try and win via another method, which I quite like.
It's really important to note that it's not like people do go there competitively to a degree, but it's always been very well known as like a fun event. Their main sort of slogan is "May the hobby be the winner," and it's a lot more important to take a fun army and a fun list, and and have fun, but also be able to try and win games. But this, I think it's definitely noted amongst the participants that this was by far the most competitive no retreat. Whether it's just whether it's down to the people who went, or whether 40k is just getting more competitive as a game now that sort of 8th has settled in. I'm not sure in that sense.
Yeah,
I think it's just a bit of a creep in general that people go to these events or see people winning it, and then those people. There's always a set of people that go to that event that are always going to be the ones that are like, I want to try and win it. And invariably, I don't know, if there's a lot of people there that are just for the hobby. They've got a nicely painted army and they want to play 5 great games.
Yeah.
That is the main focus of that event, basically. And there's some people. There was a guy, I can't remember his name now. He came all the way from Canada, and
Steve is awesome.
Yeah, he played probably about 12 games the weekend. He stayed up till like 1 or 2 most evenings just to play random games against everyone, because he's like, I live out in the middle of nowhere in Canada. It's like a 2-hour drive if I want to have a game with someone. So he just tried to cram in as much 40k as possible, which was great. Whereas I was like, for the first few nights, was like, I'm going to go to bed at 12 and be kind of good, so I'm sort of nice and rested for the tournament. Because I don't, as much as I want to play against loads of people, it's like I don't want to necessarily force it to the point where I'm going to be like ill or not enjoy the tournament day because I'm going to be super tired. Although saying that, on the last day, Sunday, it's like I'd promised Toke that I'd have a game with him, and we hadn't. So it was like, okay, like we finished our dinner on Sunday, we went back to the retreat, a few people were playing games. It's about 11 o'clock, and we're like, right, we're going to have a game. And it went on until like 3 a.m. or something ridiculous, just because it was like we were gonna make sure we had that game, because it could be the only chance I get to see him. But it was absolutely fantastic. It was like one of the best games, and sort of one of the best looking ones as well. So I'm sort of glad we did that, even though like the next day I was completely wrecked.
I think the thing is, and we were talking about this before, I think when it comes to 8th edition 40k, there has been such a influx of influencers and information available to players to better understand the makeup of the game. And I think, you look back at, say, 7th edition, and the meta was so horrible in terms of how it kept evolving and changing and shifting, and there was so many nuanced elements to that game in terms of what was good and what could be good. And in some respects, I mean, I've said this many times, and I stand by this, is that I think the core rules that fuel 7th edition were comprehensive and entertaining enough that they offered a lot of flexibility and interesting opportunities. I just think Games Workshop mucked it up with the codexes. I think 7th edition, as illustrated with Heresy, is an incredible rule set. I just think that, they mucked it up with formations and things like that. But essentially where I'm kind of going with that is I think people kind of struggled to make the good stuff work because there was either the obvious stuff, but even that required a certain level of nuance and skill because of the way the complexities of the system that ultimately powered the whole gaming experience worked was quite complex. Whereas I think because 8th edition has boiled down everything to a much more simplistic baseline rule set, you're much easier, or it's much easier for more players to start to understand and adopt the competitive elements, because I think some of the nuances of 8th edition really aren't there versus, say, the 3rd to 7th edition block of 40k. But regardless of that, I think, I just think it's the nature of thing. I mean, we were talking about with Joe, and myself, I'm struggling to find the motivation to create an army that's just fluffy and fun, because the problem is, I think, with 8th edition as a system is the game is so impossible to play if you don't have a competitive army, because it's just the game is not nuanced enough to accommodate a lack of competitiveness, I think. I don't know. There was times before when in 7th edition, if someone at the local club had a really powerful army, I could come up with an army list that was completely out of the box, that they wouldn't see coming, that could beat their stuff based on obscure but ultimately interesting rules. Whereas I think in 8th, it's just a case of, it's just numbers. It's like, okay, cool, my hammer is more powerful than yours, therefore I win.
I would sort of disagree with you there. And I think No Retreat sort of shows that if people are sort of willing to not take the kind of bleeding edge competitive list, then any kind of army can actually do reasonably well. It's like, I took Inquisition. No one would think that that's competitive. But it's like, but I still won games. So I actually think, yeah, you could create a list just of all gross, and it's never going to do well because that's completely underpowered. But I think it's relatively easy to take a narrative list that is semi-competitive without it being, the meta to win tournaments. And I think around that kind of mid-level, which is sort of what No Retreat pitches itself to be at, you can actually have some really interesting armies and, really interesting games, and it's reasonably level. And I also think that format also helps it because it's not about tabling your opponent. That did happen. I did see people come up to my table and it's like, I'm on like turn 1 or 2 and we're like 20 minutes in or something and you finished. And he's like, yeah, because tablings did happen. But for most people, I don't think that was necessarily the case. And it's like when it happened to me, or when it nearly happened to me, it was like at the very end of the game, I had 1 or 2 models left on the table. It wasn't getting blown off the table from turn 1.
No, fair enough. I mean, again, I think maybe more accurately, it's just that I think, I don't know. I think it comes back to what I was saying about the fact there's just accessing information around competitive options is so much easier to access than it was before, probably. So you can, I don't know. It's one of those things that just maybe it's just a mindset. Who knows? It's a random series of random events. Who can say for sure? But it's interesting to hear that that they've noted a much more competitive flavour, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. And maybe it's just a reflection of the hobby as a whole. But yeah, it's cool, man. So, on the topic of the games themselves, and I think a good opportunity just to try and sort of wind this up and kind of close it down, because I know Paulie's got places to be and things to do, as do you, Phil. So, I'd love to just sort of hear a sort of synopsis of your gaming experiences, maybe just a couple highlights in some games, nothing too in-depth or crazy. I mean, again, I think just sort of favourite opponent, most interesting kind of thing you came up against, and your overall performance, I guess, would probably summarise things quite nicely. So, I mean, Paulie, do you want to give us an insight into, you know, one of your most memorable moments and the sorts of things that you came up against and how you did overall?
Yeah, 100%. So, again, like, I think it's very rare at No Retreat for there to be, you know, such thing as a bad game. I played some just absolutely phenomenally painted armies. I faced, you know, sort of Gene Slayer cults, Blood Angels, Imperial Knights. Also, you know, sort of Eand and Eldar. And I finished up against Custodes. I think my best game of the weekend is, so I did a bit of a bookend in the sense that I won my first game, won my last game, and I lost the games in between. I really, so last year, it was my first No Retreat, and I had a really good event. I won 4 games. I came 4th. I won an SN award. And this year, I decided to, you know, my list had a bit of a competitive backbone with, like, you know, Blackheart Cabal, but then, you know, I watered it down with witches. But obviously, I've done well using witches and enjoy using them. But I definitely wasn't there to try and if I could have gone 3 and 2, that was fine. You know, going 2 and 3, which I did, is fine. It was this year. I think you get a totally different experience based on if you're a returner or not. And this year, I felt quite lucky in the sense that I'd experienced it before. It was just as good, but I was able to savor it a lot more. And also, I won an SN award last year, and, you know, not that I just thought nothing of it. I was really proud to win it, but actually, this year it made me actually realise how special that was. And I think, as an event, it's just totally inspiring. But yeah, my favourite game, I played against a guy called John with his Custodes, and he was just so animated, energetic, and just fun. And we had a really good game. We had such a, you know, I keep saying it's about every army, but it's true because they were beautiful. He, if you check out, you might have seen the pictures going around here and there where he has a Custodes banner guy, and he's hand painted. It's all freehand. It's one of, like, the famous pictures of the Emperor. Maybe.
Oh yeah, that's John, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's just you know, most people, like, even when I saw it first, I was like, oh, why is someone putting the arm really well and just, like, you know, print something out to, like, you know, a micro scale? But actually, it's freehand, and it's just outstanding. Again, you know, I use the word inspiring. That's what it is. It's just made me want to paint better because there's just amazing painters everywhere. But yeah, all the games were good. I definitely didn't read the rules back before I went, which again I'm quite good at. So yeah, my army did that 2 events in a row. My army sort of bled kill points. There's quite a lot of kill points in the missions. But again, it was good. I enjoyed using it, and some great anecdotes. I faced Joe Moscadini in the second game, which was it was a write-off game going into it. I'm never defeatist, but it was, you know, 3 repulsor executioners, and it was narrow to search and kill points. And I was like, I'm not going to win this game. I'm not going to win it. But, you know, I gave it a good go. Like, you know, you should never throw a game before you've even, you know, played it. And I managed to kill a repulsor turn 1. It blew up. He went to reroll his dice and rolled another 6 again. So that did well. And then it managed to take the Smash Captain down to 1 wound. And the Smash Captain, he charged my flyers. He killed the Void Raven. He couldn't finish off the Razor Wing. I've never done it before. The Razor Wing killed the Smash Captain in combat, which I thought was fun. It's definitely
that's an amazing result.
Yeah,
most people discount the fact that the Raven Wing can even fight. Like, most people you charge, if it doesn't kill the thing, people forget the thing's even got attacks to do.
That's it, and it's just about the little things. And I think it's something that I learned in the doldrums of 7th when I was, not having the best time with my Dark Elder versus D and Stomp and Invisibility and Barkstar. We can go on and on. But it's actually taking joy in the little moments. But also, it's not just about how well you do. Like, if your opponent does, pulls off, like, a really cool moment. I faced Nick in his Genes to the Colts, and it went quite one-sided towards me. But, he had some really cool moments where, the Kellamorph pops up behind my Succubus and just shot her, apart. It's really just cool elements, and it's a lot easier to have a cinematic game when all the armies are stunning and the terrain and battlefield is equally stunning. It's just really just another scale.
There you go. Sounds like an all-round positive experience on your side then.
It's good. Yeah, no, I loved it. I think it's I would never look to end like the review of negatives. It's just it can be quite expensive, obviously, booking flights, different country, and staying, the place. And obviously, it's a holiday, right? So you're gonna have a few beers. Like, actually, do you know what? The drinks were relatively well priced. They added gin and tonics to the drinks menu this year at the event, £2 each, and I drank quite a lot of gin. But it was, it can be slightly pricey. It's just, for me personally, I think I would love to return. It's just you have to weigh up real life commitments, where I could probably do most of what I do on the indie circuit in the UK for a similar price to that. But if I could afford to do both again, I think it's just an unmissable event. The camaraderie, everything about it is just is awesome.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's the thing, isn't it? If you've got to fly abroad, you've also got to, package everything. There's a relative risk because you've still got to put everything in the hull, in the luggage area, because you're not going to really be able to bring that on.
Well, there's a way about that. So you do actually take it on as your extra luggage within the sort of hand luggage.
Oh, okay.
So you stick it up in the overheads, and everyone in like the chats and stuff will recommend like best cases and stuff. So for example, I use the GW Ard case. Which fits within the sort of luggage requirements. And what you've got to do is just kind of queue up early when you're coming onto the flight, because it's like a busy flight. So sometimes they take hand luggage off and put it in the hole. So you want to make sure you get in there early enough to make sure that doesn't happen. Because if you put it in the hole, it'll probably get chucked around and be a bit bashed up. So everyone takes it on as hand luggage basically. So you want to make sure, like most flights from the UK to Gibraltar via BA, which give you 2 hand luggage anyway. So I packed super light. I had one backpack with all my codexes and all my clothes, and then the other thing was my Ard case. So I didn't need to actually check anything. Whereas most people, actually quite a lot of people, would check all their clothes and stuff, and then they would take, as their hand luggage would be just the models.
Oh yeah, I totally approach it that way, mate. I can't stand having too much stuff on me and on airplanes. I'm like literally, I genuinely, on most flights I do, I will have my credit card and my phone, and that's all I usually carry.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a squeeze fitting it all in, but I was like, do you know what? It's better to do that than run the risk of like having to lose something at the luggage claim, or to be waiting around ages for your luggage. But it turned out, because I did an early morning flight, so it was just me and James Oterio from Siege Studios, and he had checked his luggage, so I was waiting outside with Nick from, as in SN, the N is Nick. So I was waiting with him while James was waiting for his luggage anyway, so I didn't actually save any time. So going forward, maybe it would just be easier to check my clothes bag in future.
Well, exactly. You can lose all of those clothes, but you don't want to lose that army, that's for sure. It's interesting, man. Well, there you go. So, Phil, how was yours? Any particular highlights or things you wanted to discuss?
Yeah, I mean, there was a few. Well, I mean, like, as Paulie said, all games are really good, but armies are all really stunningly well painted. First game was against Death Guard, which was like a narrow win for me. Basically, I sort of snatched the Eternal War at the very end, so that was kind of cool. Second game was against a guy called Nick Haynes, who I played. I don't think I've played against him before, but I've definitely seen him around at events like Warhammer World and stuff. He's got this really lovely Raptors army, which is Raven Guard successor, so predominantly Primaris, but with a couple of like old school Grav Devi squads and Grav Centurions. That was really cool. That was the best game my Death Riders ever did something, because I sort of countercharged one of his squads, and I think I killed like 7 Primaris in like one round of combat, which was insane. Like I've never rolled so well with them, so that was like a highlight from that game. But I basically got smashed in that game. It was a real tough one because it was narrow research, and basically we were both targeting each other's troops. So by like the end of turn 3, none of us had like objective securing troops. So it was all down to who you had left on the table. So I unfortunately lost that one. Game 3 was against a guy called Luke, who's got a really nice Tau army. In fact, he was the one I sent you a picture of because it's similar to the scheme you're working on, like the kind of really nice green colour scheme. That one went really well for me. It's like I did the best I've ever done on Maelstrom cards, and I scored like max points every turn in Maelstrom, which was unheard of. And then I just narrowly eked out on the Eternal War, which was, 4 pillars. But that was a really tough game. I mean, tough to an extent, but I actually did win it quite easily. Game 4 was against James Oterio from Siege Studios. That was a fun one. That one went down to the wire and was like a super nail biter. So it was probably like the closest game out of the whole weekend. But yeah, so on that one, it's like we drew primary and secondary, and I just won it on the tertiary. So that was super great. It was almost a draw, but I luckily clinched it by getting Sable Warlord and First Strike. And then the last game was against a guy called Phil Lewis from Rapid Fire Wargaming, and it was quite funny because I had played him in my last game of No Retreats 6. So both times I played the same opponent on the very final game. So that was really fun because it was like, hey, it's you again. And but he had an all-nights list. So that was like, oh, this will be a hard game. But it had the most sort of memorable moments, I think. So like turn 1, his Gallant had charged into one of my Lehman Russes and smashed it up. And then he used a stratagem to chuck the Lehman Russ at my Commissar, who's my Warlord, and did a bunch of mortal wounds to him, but he survived. But then turn 2, he did the exact same thing and chucked another Lehman Russ at my Commissar, and then he finally killed him. So I was like, no. And then later on, because this was beachhead, so it's like you have one key objective in each of your deployment zones. It's like I had a bunch of squads defending mine, plus, I can't remember what he's called now. He's the Blackstone Fortress Crusader model.
I can't remember his name either, but I know the one you're talking about. Yeah,
so I've been using him to not too good effect most of the game. The Crusaders were a bit middling, I would say. But in that game, he did quite well because he was on the objective, couldn't be shot at because he was a character. So basically, Phil's Cerastus Knight Lancer goes and charges over there and basically charges him into combat, does like 13 odd wounds on him. And I'm like, right, I've got a 3-up save. You're probably going to kill me, but I'm going to roll them one at a time for dramatic effect, which I know Richard said earlier, either today or yesterday, was a bit of a pet peeve of him. But I basically made 11 of them in a row successfully, and then he died in the last few. But it was getting quite tense because I was like, 3-up, and I was constantly making it. And then he died. And then I tried a similar thing with one of our other characters later on and like died straight away.
Well, it seems only reasonable given the prior situation, right?
I know.
You were well overdue that kind of misfortune.
Well, exactly. It was doing, but it was a fun game, even though I lost that one in the end. So I won 3, lost 2. But yeah, that last game was a kind of good fun one and a nice sort of way to end end the tournament. Although, as I mentioned, I then went on and played Toke in the evening, which was actually really good fun, and probably the best game out of all of them, just because it's like I've known him for a while, partly because of the podcast, but also because he's in the Deathcore Krieg Facebook group. So we've been chatting for a really long time beforehand. So he was the person I was sort of most looking forward to meeting. And yeah, he was just such a top bloke. It was such a great game.
There you go. Well, I hope Toke appreciates the love and or enthusiasm we have towards him within this episode. But yeah, genuinely sounds like an amazing event, an amazing time. I've been sort of listening to all of this while trying to work out what it is I could possibly bring that would, give me the best opportunity to gain entry. But
it's probably a commission painted army. is probably the easiest solution for you. I mean, I think there's three key things that you need. You need the army needs to be well painted. It needs to have lots of conversions in it, and it needs to have really nice basing. And it needs to sort of be eye-catching from afar, but also be sort of well painted and detailed up close. I think you need to tick both of those boxes. There were definitely some armies there which did look really good, but maybe the painting wasn't quite as what you'd necessarily expect, because, not to say that's a bad thing, but it's because the painting standard's gone up each year. And I was like, geez, it feels like even I wouldn't be able to get back next year because the painting standard is that high. Now, I don't know if they're going to deliberately always try and go for the best painted people, or if they will actually tone it down a bit and be like, yeah, okay, it's great to have some Golden Demon winners, but we sort of just want some more people that are a bit middling in a way, not in a bad way, but I mean, they're good. They've got a good hobby. They're good painters, but they don't have to be the best painters in the world.
Yeah.
Although ironic, I think that's sort of what the whole no retreat thing is meant to be about. It's not. It's a tournament for non-tournament players. The way I would describe it. It's for people that have casual games, but probably spend more time painting than they do playing. It'd be interesting to see what the balance will be like next year. If it's got, if the painting standards not quite as high, or if it's even higher, I don't know. It's worth, no matter how bad you think you are at painting, I think it's worth applying no matter what. Like this year, they definitely had a lot more dropouts as the time went on, leading up to the event. So a lot of people got on the reserve list. So even if you're not the best painter, you might be the fifth best painter on the reserve list, and you might get through that way. Yeah. And as Paulie said, go for a niche army. There's a lot of Space Marine armies that get through because they pick at least one from each of the core chapters, plus some generic ones. But maybe if you play Gene Stealer Cult, it's there was one Gene Stealer Cult player this year, and he won't be bringing it back next year because he's already said so much. So or go Tyranids, because there was only one Tyranid army. It's there's some niche factions out there that not many people play. That's probably your best bet at getting in.
No, it makes sense, mate. Makes absolute sense.
Don't take a well-painted Drakari army. Just make sure you don't do it.
yeah, whatever you do, stay away from those well-painted Drakari. That's spoken for. Now, I'll probably, I don't know, I'll probably just be lazy and just do a halfway Wraith army and just be it either works or it doesn't. There you go. Anyway.
Sisters Silence army.
Huh?
The Sisters of Silence army.
Oh yeah, Sisters of Silence army. Grot Tank army. What other obscure nonsense is there? A Kroot army.
Well, exactly. Army. Yeah, that'd be quite a good one to do.
Yeah, a whole army.
I think they probably do look at that kind of the theme of your army more than a lot of things, because it's not just how well it's painted. It's also the kind of composition of what you're gonna want to take, I think, and they do look at that sort of thing, because they don't want two Space Marine armies that are identical. It's they do want some different things.
They don't want a bunch of just a load of Iron Hands players, right?
No, exactly.
There you go. Well, cheers for that, gents. I think that was a really good appraisal of the event, and really appreciate the insight. So as we've said many times before, if you'd like to apply for No Retreats 9, I understand, when are they opening applications for that, gents?
I'm not sure. I think last year they opened it up very quickly after the event, but I think they're looking potentially later. But don't quote me on that. I think you just have to watch the SM Battle Reports Facebook and Insta pages.
Yeah, keep an eye on that, gents, and they'll keep you informed of what's going on. But yeah, with that said, I imagine we'll now move on to whatever it is we do next. So thanks very much again,
Thank
gents.
you very much.
And I will transition now. Woo! Welcome back, everybody. We're joined here now by myself, Dan, good old Phil. Hey, Phil.
Hey,
There he is. Joe. How you doing, Joe?
I'm very, very, very good.
And of course, dear old Rich. Doing well, buddy?
Hello, good, happy to be here, excited to be on again.
There you are. Boom. So, in this segment of the podcast, we're going to be talking about Space Marines because everybody loves Space Marines. And to show our love, appreciation, excitement, and or enthusiasm for all things Space Marine, we, as a collective, not exclusively us here today, there are two others as well who couldn't be on the conversation for various purposes, but essentially the collective known as Lookout Sir is embarking upon a Space Marine 1,000-point project. Woo!
Woo, yeah!
Woo! Adding in some sound effects of clapping and excitement. Yeah. Anyway, so the point is we thought, in the spirit of the occasion, the release of the incredible new Space Marine stuff, each of us should set about creating and or, building, painting and creating a 1,000-point Space Marine army made up of models that we have never before owned or built or painted and so on. So effectively, it's 1,000 points. There are no special criteria. It can be a successor chapter. It can be a first founding chapter. It can feature special characters. It can not feature special characters. Although, again, that is entirely optional. So, yeah, effectively, each of us has taken to this with differing levels of competitive and or fluffy ideas in mind. So, what we wanted to do was just talk about the project and essentially give you some indication of what's going on, so as when we start talking about it on social media and things of that nature, it all starts making sense. Is that about everything that makes sense? Oh, there's also a gaming element, isn't there? I can't forget that. So the plan is that we're going to go to Warhammer World in December with our beautifully painted, theoretically, Space Marine armies and have a 6-way competition to see who has crafted the finest group of Space Marines. So it's me, it's Phil, it's Joe, it's Rich, and it's also Tim, and it's also the infamous Sean. The 6 of us are doing 6 individual Space Marine chapters, and we're going to talk about which ones we're doing. So let's begin with Joe. Joe, which Space Marine chapter have you chosen to call your own?
Well, anyone who follows me on social media will know that I'm well ahead of the curve on everyone else on this. But I have chosen the Celestial Lions as my chapter.
The Celestial Lions, the successor chapter of the Imperial Fists.
That is the one and only.
My goodness. What inspired you to do the Celestial Lions, Joe?
I knew of them a while ago, but I didn't really know anything about them. And then I recently listened to the Emperor's Spears book by Aaron Dembski-Bowden. I listened to an audiobook, and they're in that. And they're really, really cool. And it kind of inspired me, after listening to that book, to go and make an Emperor's Spears army. And then I found out it's nigh on impossible to find anything to do with them, even getting their transfer sheets. So I thought, sod that, I'll do Celestial Lions because they were cool as well.
So you approached it thinking, I'll do Celestial Spears, and then you abandoned that in their entirety.
Emperor's Spears.
Emperor's Spears, sorry.
Yeah, because I thought they were a bit too Space Wolfy in the end as well.
Is that what it was? A little bit too generic-y Space Wolfy?
They were just kind of generic guys with spears, like kind of space Vikings, like had lots of furs and stuff like that.
Have they also, the Emperor's Spears, suffered the fate of other weird chapter tactic Space Marines where they've since they've ceased being match play legal, right?
Yeah. So if you bought the limited edition version of the book, you got a whole bunch of transfers, and you got like a little mini rules supplement, which allowed you to run them. And then Games Workshop subsequently released a little download for them, and it's like whenever you charged on the first round of combat, you had exploding sixes to hit. And then Games Workshop just FAQ'd it to make them null and void.
Only in match play, though. Obviously, if you want to use it in an open narrative game, I imagine people would be cool with that.
I'm pretty sure they've got that in the successor chapters section anyway. So they pick it if they want to. So, yeah.
So I assume, Joe, your Celestial Lions are going to honour the chapter of their founding and take to the tabletop as Imperial Fists, correct?
They will do when the book comes out.
Oh.
Because currently, and I know all the Fluff Bunnies are going to hate it, but I'm currently running them as Iron Hands, because those guys are crazy bananas.
I mean, Phil, as our resident Fluff Bunny, what's your opinion of Joe's approach?
Well, it's not very sportsmanlike, is it?
Especially for a friendly contest amongst buddies, Joe. What's this all about?
Exactly.
Well, the way I look at it, and there is a slightly fluff side of this.
Oh, right,
so a little bit of
please.
Backstory for you, basically. The Celestial Lions were on a mission with the Inquisition, and basically they spent a very long time defending a planet and lost about 400 Space Marines of their entire chapter defending this planet. And in the end, the Inquisition just declared exterminatus and just wiped out the planet anyway. And the Celestial Lions are obviously a little bit miffed about this.
I mean, honestly, that sounds incredibly annoying.
Yeah, so they called the Inquisition up on their BS. And they said, we're going to go talk to the High Lords of Terror. So they sent a ship to Terra to go talk to the High Lords of Terra. And then that ship never arrived. And then it was found 5 years later, drifting in the void, and everyone was dead. So it turned out that the Inquisition wasn't too happy about people questioning them and what they've done.
I see.
So,
and then they became Iron Hands.
Well, then they got sent to Armageddon to go and help people out. But mysteriously, all of their officers and apothecaries all were being killed by snipers and slowly killed off.
Right.
And then, just to top it all off, with their dwindling numbers, they got stuck on the other side of the Maledictum Tempestus thingy.
The rift.
The rift. Well, yeah, we've got the rift. It got stuck on the other side of the rift.
Yeah.
And as of since, have been reduced down to 9 Space Marines, and they've been slowly rebuilding over time.
So how many Marines have they got now?
They've probably got about 100, if that. There's probably more Space Marines in my army than there are actual Celestial Lions currently.
There you go. And they're Iron Hands because?
Because if there's not many of you left, you're going to be playing a bit cagey.
Oh, I see. They've gotten a bit tougher.
Yeah. The ones who are left over are the double-hard ones.
So, sorry, this story that you've come up with here, this is a actual what happened to them story?
This is an actual what happened to them story, yes.
Why would they want to go talk to the High Lords of Terror?
Because they wanted to complain about
Marines
the Inquisition.
Don't go to the High Lords of Terror to complain, mate.
Well, they weren't going to do an all-out attack on the Inquisition, because that would be suicide.
So they were going to go and lodge a complaint at the High Lords of Terror?
Yeah, to basically call
the lazy writing there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't
well,
they got to turn up and get a ticket?
Well, I don't know if anyone... basically, if you haven't read the Emperor Spears book, and you intend to, don't listen for the next, say, 2 to 5 minutes, right?
Wait, hold on. I don't want to listen to what you've got to say, because I'd like to read it. So
also,
I mean,
this is going off on a tangent, Joe, right? So hang on, let's abandon this let's not worry about the legitimacy or the specific aspects of the story. Hopefully people haven't switched off as well already, but if they have, fair enough. They'll miss all this fantastic stuff. They've become Iron Hands because they've been dwindled down to 9 Marines, got back up to about 100 odd, and I guess they've just got tough along the way. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they spend a lot of time fighting with the Spears of the Emperor. So their tactics, the way they wage war will have changed dramatically just to stay alive.
So, and you think that's the correct thing to do in a friendly, we're collecting Space Marine chapters a fun amongst your friends to take top tier Iron Hands?
I did officially say that when we do this, the Imperial Fist book will be out by then, and I will look at it and I'll either use Fists, Crimson Fists, or Black Templars,
depending on which one's
really good.
The best.
Why don't you could just use Imperial Fists now, Joe? They already have rules.
That's true.
Yeah, but they're not very good. And if you're going to a tournament, you want to run the best.
You're not going to a tournament, Joe. You're playing a game with your mates.
Yeah, but I'm running them as Fist as bloody Iron Hands now because I am going to tournaments with this army because I'm the only person that's actually built and painted their models so far.
I think we should just rewind a little bit, Joe. How are you able to run these as Imperial Fists? Sorry, Iron Hands.
Well, I just tell people that they're Iron Hands.
Right, but they're clearly not. They're painted as Celestial Lions.
Yeah, but...
And if I adjust my pocket protector, I'll think you'll find that if you cannot choose to be a successor of a chapter which you are known to not be a successor of.
Yeah, you can.
You cheat, Joe. You cheats.
I'm not cheating. At the end of the day, the color of what you paint your models shouldn't dictate how you play with them.
But
but it does.
but it doesn't. So if you went out, I told you specifically that the Celestial Lions were Imperial Fist successors, would you have known?
Or you did, because that's why you got them.
Yeah, because I went out and did the research. But to anyone else, they're just gold and blue Space Marines.
But not black and silver.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter.
I'm just playing devil's advocate, by the way, Joe. I agree with you.
Sure you are. Because at the end of the day... Oh, hang on. If you bought some Thousand Suns models...
Yep.
And you painted them black, and you put them on the table, did they stop being Thousand Suns?
No, because they're Thousand Sun models.
Yeah, but these are Space Marine models. The ones I'm using, they're just a different colour. It's like if you painted your House Crest Knight luminous pink, then it doesn't matter what colour you paint it, because you're still going to run it as House Crest, because no one knows what the colour of House Crest is. Probably red, because they're all blooming red.
I mean, you raise a good point, Joe. I mean, we've talked about this before. I think we did a segment on should Gilliman be blue, which was a whole thing. I'm with you, mate. I don't think a colour scheme should dictate what your army is, assuming that your army is entirely 100% representational of what it is in terms of the fact that it is the right models with the right equipment in, the right scale and so on and so forth. I think, ultimately you could use your Celestial Lions as Iron Hands and I would be legitimately fine with that in a competitive tournament sense. I think where we're coming at it from, Joe, is, it's more the friendly fun side of it, What's going on here?
What kind of person would bring Iron Hands to a friendly fun game system?
Oh, exactly. Who would do that, Joe?
Friendly fun tournaments that everyone is all proper legit.
But Joe, we're not talking about that. You've gone somewhere else entirely with this now. You're starting to talk about your Iron Hands army. You're using in tournaments.
You asked me at the beginning of this, am I going to be running my guys as Imperial Fist? And I said yes. And you goaded me with your incessant questions, knowing but I currently wasn't running them as those. Just to paint me as the bad guy. Even though when this all happens, I'm going to be running as Imperial Fists. I even made a special character for this.
Oh, did you? What's he called?
Is this the Iron Hands one?
No, this is my counts as...
Ferris is his name, yeah.
It's my counts as Lysander model.
And what's his name?
Colin. I haven't made him a proper name yet.
Colin.
I need to wait for their supplement to come out so I can do the random name generator that comes in the back.
Ah, fair enough. Do you reckon you'll see Colin amongst the names?
Well, I think it's a possibility. Because let's face it, the Space Wolves have got a character called Harold, for Christ's sake. So Colin's a possibility.
Well, that is true. That is true.
Never discount Colin.
So, Joe,
Harold is a strong Viking name, though.
Is it?
That should. Oh yeah.
Also,
Harold Hardrada invaded Britain back in the days. He was a Viking king. Harold is a strong Viking name.
Mm.
Yes.
I mean, when you say he invaded Britain, did he just sort of come onto the shoreline and steal some pebbles and run away?
So little known fact: he invaded England and then failed miserably. He got his ass kicked. It probably wasn't really Britain back then because everyone's heard the story of when the Normans invaded and they killed King Harold, and that's when Britain first became Britain.
Yes.
We've all heard that story. Everyone's heard that story. What you haven't heard of is very briefly before that when Harold Hardrada invaded Britain, and I think it's Harold Hardrada. I might be completely wrong, but
there's so many Harolds in our English history. Clearly.
Well, I know this thanks to my Civilization 6 is the only reason I know this. But I'm pretty sure it's Harold Hardrada he invaded England. He did. He invaded England in 1066 and he attacked whatever we were then, did loads of damage, but was ultimately defeated. And then the injured locals were then invaded by the Normans, who then kicked their asses because you could say they'd been weakened by the Vikings.
Is this Harold of Hastings? Is that Hastings?
Yes, Harold of Hastings.
Oh, I don't know.
I'm very excited to see how you play with your Celestial Lions, however you paint them and however you choose them to be.
There you go.
Yeah.
Are they going to be predominantly a Primaris offering, Joe, or will you be using some other types of Marines? What's the plan?
What's the plan? I'd like to run lots of squads of intercessors with them, and I'm a big fan of the new stealthy dudes, the Vanguard guys. So I'll probably put those in. Obviously, because they're going to be Imperial Fists at the time of this happening. I will probably want to run as many bolter-based weapons as I can. So that'll probably be the plan.
Well, there we are. Thank you very much for the insight, Joe. Trying hard in even the funnest little gatherings. We appreciate your efforts.
What are you doing then, Dan? Let's all pick holes in your stuff.
Yeah,
I'm doing Dark Angels.
Yeah, but they're not a new codex. That's
I know.
fun.
I'm doing a Marine chapter. I'm doing Dark Angels. I'm doing Samael on a land speeder. I'm doing a unit of Ravenwing bikes, or unit of Ravenwing Black Knights, the Dark Shroud, a unit of Deathwing Terminators, a Master in Terminator armor, and a Devastator squad. There you go, 1,000 points.
I think you might as well have done Chaos.
In a way, I have. But you see,
these are not Astartes.
This is a nice, fluffy, playing games with your mate's army. Not whatever you're talking about, Joe. Madness.
I feel like I've been set up on this one.
What?
Oh, Joe.
I've got Ravenwing and Deathwing and a unit of Green Marines with missile launchers. It's a Devastator squad with all missile launchers.
Jesus.
That's what it is. Not a Primaris Marine in sight. Old school, proper Dark Angels.
Why have you done that, then?
Well, mostly because I've always really loved Deathwing, and I've always really loved Ravenwing, and I've always really loved the idea of the Dark Angels, and I've always had them on the back burner as a thing that I wanted to do, but never got around to doing in any meaningful sense. I've always kind of like owned some models, base coated them, got rid of them or whatever. So yeah, I don't know, like Dark Angels for me. So weirdly, the first Space Marine chapter I ever played as a kid growing up was the Space Wolves. I was super into Space Wolves. I was like, oh, these are cool, Vikings in space, yeah, wicked. And then I kind of realised that they're a bit stupid, aren't they? Space Wolves, Vikings in space. It's all a little bit bizarre and a bit too literal, I suppose. And for whatever reason, the other thing doing the rounds at the time was the Angels of Death Codex and the Dark Angels, as it were. And I always remember I really used to like the Ezekiel model, which is the librarian of the Dark Angels, the fella in all the hooded stuff and all the rest of it. So I figured, I should give these Dark Angels a try. And I mucked around with them for a bit, but then sort of, didn't really follow through with it or do anything meaningful with it. And yeah, as time has gone on, I've always really been interested in doing a small little force of Dark Angels, and I've never got around to doing it properly. But now I have an opportunity to paint up 1,000 points, to play some games with my mates in a fun way, and I know they won't win, and I know they're going to be terrible, but I just want some Dark Angel, Raven Wing, Death Wing combinations. That's what I'm looking for. So that's what I've done. Or doing.
Brilliant. Have you started it?
So I've assembled it all. Well, with the exception of the missile launcher squad, I'm in the process of building that right now. Got some nice Forge World shoulder pads for those, and been using a mixture of the Devastator box and the Veterans box, which is the old Dark Angels Veterans. So I've got 3 robed Space Marines and 2 non-robed Space Marines, which I wanted to call Naked Marines for a minute there, but that probably isn't in any way accurate. But the ones without the extra robage. And then yeah, I built Samael on, I think it's the Saberclaw. Saberclaw might be the jet bike. It's like Corvex or something, I can't remember. It's the one that's a land speeder. So I've got Samael, land speeder.
I thought he didn't have that option anymore. I thought that was the Hunt Master or whatever he's called that goes on the
Talon Master. Yeah, so there's the Talon Master and the Samael. They're both available on in land speeders. So Samael can come on either a jet bike or a land speeder still.
Does he have a better weapon option than the plasma cannon?
So he's got 2 assault cannons and 2 heavy bolters.
Jesus.
Hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s. Well,
does he give a re-roll everything bubble? Or
yeah,
just
he gives all Raven Wing re-roll everything, and he gives all Dark Angels re-roll 1s.
Bloody good, isn't it?
He's alright, yeah. I mean, he's expensive, but he's alright, yeah. He's decent. He's got a 4-up invuln. And he's got, I think he's only got 8 wounds or 9 wounds, so he's a character vehicle that you can't shoot at either.
So what we're saying is he's actually a better Storm Talon.
Yeah, I guess he is.
The Storm Talon. He's a Storm Talon you can't shoot, and it's got a 4-up invuln.
Yeah, and he's got 5 attacks at strength 6, I think.
Yeah.
At -3 as well, D3 damage, I want to say.
Yeah.
So he's no slouch in a fight, and yeah, he's all right. I mean, he's Samael. He's the master of the Raven Wing. He's your boy.
Yeah.
And then there's the Dark Talon that gives all the Raven Wing stuff -1 to hit, so that's all going on. And then I got 5 Raven Wing bikes led by a sergeant with a power sword, 3 Black Knights all with plasma talons and the Corvus hammers, and then I've got a Master in Terminator armor leading a 5-man squad of Terminators. And the Terminators are all just Storm Bolters and Power Fists, and I'm using the new Forge World Dark Angels Captain Terminator character from the Horus Heresy, so the nice cool resin one with the wicked looking sword, and whatever those weird guns are in Heresy. What were they called? The
Volkites.
Yeah, the Volkite. He's got Volkite, but I'm just, you know, it's a Stormbolter. I'm sure you don't mind. Unless
There
you
are
do.
rules for Volkite in 40k. I think it's only available to the Tartarus captain, the Tartarus sergeant, isn't it?
I don't even think he... Oh, maybe he does. Maybe he does get the Volkite still in 8th edition. I thought he had some weird plasma variant, didn't he?
He's got the. They have got a plasma blaster as well that can go in the squad, but I think there's a Volkite as well.
Fair enough. Well, you can't take it as a master in Terminator armor, so is what it is. But yeah, that's the army. It's not very good, but it's thematic and it's Dark Angel-y, and you know, it's different, isn't it? I like bikes. I like the mobility. I like the, you know, it's a little bit of everything. But the overall gimmick is I have my backline shooty stuff, which is just because, you know, some people will take dreadnoughts or some people will take tanks, so you need something that's a bit anti-tank in there. And then it's just a bunch of Ravenwing and Deathwing that just go forwards. It's just like, I will be in your face now. Deal with me.
I quite like the idea that you're running something that no one has actually seen on the table for the entirety of 8th edition, including when the Dark Angels Codex dropped.
Yeah, that was also part of the incentive around it was, you know, I just went, you know, full-blown fluffy fluff. Because, whatever. It's you know, that's the point of it.
I kind of feel like Games Workshop's got a serious issue with the biker model. Because they basically took them away from White Scars as well.
How do you mean took them away from White Scars?
Because they're not actually that good in the main key ability is if you're on a bike, you get to shoot a heavy weapon.
Yeah.
But no one's taking attack bikes because they're massively overcosted and terrible.
Yes, that's correct. Poor
So, White Scars is hilariously now an Assault Marine and Terminator army.
Oh yeah, you want just go Terminator crazy. Well, Raven Guard as well. It's the same deal. But there you go. There you are, Dark Angels. That's me. What about you, Phil? What are you taking?
Well, I haven't really done too much on this project because I've been mostly getting ready for No Retreat. Now that's sort
I
of...
went to No Retreat. Ooh!
You never mentioned that, Phil.
He never mentions it, does he? Never once.
But now I'm back, I can actually focus on this project. But as everyone knows, I'm probably quite a slow painter, and it's October. So I've basically got 2 months to paint 1,000 points, which is basically unheard of, if not impossible.
I mean, it's
do.
only
impossible for you.
Hello.
Yes, have you met Mr. Richard and his contrast paint method?
Yeah, well, man, it works, mate. I mean, that being said, I mean, you can just spray them black if you want. I mean, you don't need to. I mean, just build and, you know, construct an army. That's enough.
My fear that if Phil put a half-painted model on the table, you'd have an aneurysm.
Mate, I was there with him when he had to explain to John Blanche why he hadn't painted models. That was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
That's like, I kind of, that's like meeting your hero, like a famous singer, and then forgetting what band he's in.
Yeah. It was like, I don't know, it'd be that thing where it's like, wait a minute, you're a fake and a phony from the old.
No, John, no.
Blanche just said to him, hey, why don't you paint your models, mate? And Phil looked at him all like, really?
It wasn't quite like that. He was like, I really like it, but get them painted.
Get them painted.
And I was like, oh, I will, Mr. John Blanche. Yeah.
And you've never played with an unpainted model since?
I try not to anyway, or it's sometimes impossible to because I sort of do them in sub-assemblies. Anyway, getting back on
track. It's your fear that if you did, John Blanche would just suddenly appear out of nowhere just to shun you even further.
It would be, yeah. He'd probably... I would say the ghost of John Blanche, but he's still alive, so it's not like his spirit is going to do it. Maybe he's got my telephone number, so maybe he'll give me a call and be like, I can tell these aren't painted.
Exactly. He feels the disturbance.
So, yeah, I'm basically torn between... I want to do something quick, and easy because I've got a lot to paint up in a very short space of time. But I also want to do something sort of interesting. I've basically got 3 options. I've narrowed it down to 3. The main one I really want to do, and I still want to do, is Black Templars. Talked about it on the podcast before. I think they're very thematic. They fit in with my Krieg and my Inquisition really nicely as like an extra force, so I can build up from them. The downside is there's sort of the implication is they won't be in the Imperial Fists Codex from General Rumour Mill, and it seems like, and they're not really currently that well supported in terms of the rules. So I'm a bit.
I'm a lot of characters though.
Yes, but it's that problem is I really want to do a Primaris force as well. I don't really want to do old school Marines, so it would either mean converting them all to Primaris scale and running them as sort of old school Marine rules, which can work, but
you could run them as Blood Angels. They're all salty.
No, that's true, but then I guess so. But then I'm doing that thing that I just accused you of doing, of not using the rules that they're given.
I was hoping I was going to trap you then, but carry on.
So that'd be nice, but the thing is, I would literally want to convert every single one of those models, and that would be like a year-long plus project. So I could do it, and I could just do some like basic intercessors, like do some basic Primaris stuff, and not embellish them too much as a basic 1,000 points. And then for the 750 points extra, do all the thematic stuff with some characters and, spend time converting them all up. Or I could do something easier. So I'm still tempted by Deathwatch, I've always wanted to do. And I've got a couple of those models because I picked them up when the, Deathwatch Overkill and the other one came out that had the...
You bought that Christmas bundle about 4 years ago.
No, it wasn't a Christmas bundle. It was the...
But you did also buy that Christmas bundle. I was there.
Yeah, I was there because you bought it for me when I was working in the Winchester Games Workshop store.
What was the bundle?
It was like 30 Marines and Dreadnought and some other stuff. You probably got it in your loft, mate. Or
that was it was Death Mask, wasn't it? That was it.
No, it wasn't Death Mask. Although you did buy that as well, I remember.
So I've got Death Mask and Deathwatch Overkill. So Deathwatch Overkill was the sort of board game with Gene Stealer Cult, and
but you sold a lot of it off, didn't you, as well?
Well, I got rid of all the elder stuff to you, which I guess you promptly sold off somewhere else as well. And then I've got the...
Dan might have it now.
No, I don't have that one yet.
Oh, okay.
And then I got the Deathwatch Overkill, which had Gene Stealer Cult, and the Deathwatch special characters. So I've still got those, and then Death Mask, which was the Elder and regular Deathwatch, which had the Artemis and the a Dreadnought and the regular kill team. So I do like the old school kill teams, and I think if I was to do Deathwatch, I wouldn't do Primaris. So that would be a way of differentiating it, because I do like the old Mark 8 armour. But I could just do lots of those, basically.
Well, you should have a look around your house, mate, and see if you can find... I think they were called Battle Forces back in the day.
I'm pretty sure I didn't buy that. Like
I'm pretty sure you bought the Christmas Battle Force when they came out.
I think I was tempted to, but didn't in the end.
I tell you what, we're going around in circles. Whether he did or he didn't, Deathwatch is a good option.
So Deathwatch is cool. Black Templars is cool.
Yep.
They're both black, so a bit samey, I guess. The other option and final option is Minotaurs. Because I've always liked the idea of Minotaurs, because I obviously had the Fall of Orpheus campaign book, which has Krieg in, and alongside Krieg, they fight with Minotaurs, so it'd be quite a good companion army. And I think this one I could actually do out of the three the quickest, because I could spray them a bronzy goldy colour, and do them all as Primaris, because they should technically have all the new gear, because they are the High Lords of Terror's beatsticks.
It would actually be quite fluffy, on a side note. you'll be working for the Inquisition, hunting down my Space Marines. A reason for them to fight in this tournament.
Well, exactly, yeah. So I think that would be a good little way of doing it. And I think I could build them literally just as 1,000 points, not care about expanding them out into a larger army, and just have them as an allied force to my Krieg and Inquisition. And same with Death Watch. Death Watch could just be a sort of add-on to my wider Imperium army.
Well, given your small force of Inquisition, right, it would make sense. And again, Joe, I've got to remind you, it's not a tournament so much so, although I suppose it is. All right, fine.
It's a fun. I mean, we need to put a date on it because that's Phil's biggest challenge. Is getting because we're in October now.
It's true.
The year's running away with us.
Well, exactly. But I was thinking something like the 14th or 15th of December, or maybe the 21st, 22nd. One of those weekends.
Something to look forward to. But more importantly, Phil, how would you be running your Minotaurs? As which chapter, or would they be successors?
Do you know what? I don't know. Weirdly, I was just looking it up.
Iron Hands.
to see, but well, weirdly, the rumor is that they are an Iron Hand successor. The other one is that they're world beaters, I think, or world bearers.
There's a lot of weird talk because they're like sometimes it's world eaters, sometimes it's Death Guard as well. A lot of the talk is that they're a big moosh boosh of different chapters, because the talk is that Moloch, the chapter master, is actually a custodes.
Ooh.
And that Moloch isn't his name, but it is his name, but it's also like a title given, so that if he dies, then another custodes takes over his position.
No, so I wouldn't know, because I haven't really thought about Minotaurs too much. So in terms of even the composition of how that would work, I don't know what I would do. I think in whichever army I go for, it's a combination of the bits that I've been collecting so far, because ultimately I don't want to have to spend loads of money buying a brand new army for something that I might not expand out into a full army. And I've been collecting the Warhammer Conquest issues, so I've got lots of the easy build Primaris Marines, so it would probably be a mishmash of those things, plus maybe a few extra things of things I would like aggressors, because I think I've got 3 so far, but they're the crappy flamer ones because they're the easy build ones.
They're not necessarily crappy though, mate. They've got options. They're good.
Yeah, I think they're okay, but I think everyone knows the
If you don't want them, I'll take them because I'm going to use some Flamestorm Gauntlet ones in my army.
Ooh.
If you take the chapter tactic that gives you an extra 3-inch range, they actually become quite tasty then.
Mm.
Also, there will be the addition of those new transports where you can move and disembark, so that's also going to be quite an interesting addition to their playstyle.
Aggressors can't go in that though, they've clarified that.
Oh, they already stated that?
Yeah. Gravis armor can't go in it.
That's lame. Oh, well, there you go. Fair enough then, Phil. So, you're still on the fence, but it's going to be one of those 3 things.
A little bit. I think what I might do to help swing it is do a test model of each one. Just paint one up, because I've got an idea for doing a quick black colour scheme that I want to try. And see if it looks any good, basically.
I mean, you do own quite a lot of Death Watch models, mate. You may as well see how those come together. I mean, they've been in your possession for a long old time now, haven't they?
Well, exactly. Yeah, a good few years.
It's got to be worth a punt. There you go. How about you then, Rich? What be you taking?
Well, I too, similar to Phil, or similar to one of Phil's options, is a Space Marine army that I wanted to do for quite a few years now, ever since I first read about them back in the Anthelian Project. Ooh. In the good old days, back when Elysian drop troops had rules. Which is a great story about a secret installation where they're doing tests on Tyranids, and it went terribly wrong, everybody died. But the Red Scorpions played a role in that, and I was very intrigued by them as a chapter, and I kind of like the color. Actually, I don't really like the color scheme. It's just a generic grey, so I paint them differently, I think.
Oh, I really like that colour scheme.
Interesting that you should say that you will be running a chapter but not painting them the colour that it says. It should be painted. Why would you do that? That is cheating.
Because they just look
cheating,
like
I say.
They just look like Space Wolves. So I'm considering doing it, mixing up, maybe put some more black in there. Still keep the grey and the yellow, but maybe add a bit more variety to it to make it a little more interesting.
Then you're Imperial Fists.
Nope. Imperial Fists. I'm doing them separately, and for those who remember, I have some Imperial Fists that I took to GT Heat 2 and didn't do very well with. but with the new rules, I hope to do better. And these will be Imperial Fists who are painted like Imperial Fists and weren't moonlighting as Iron Hands for quite a while. Joe. Yeah.
I stand by it.
I kept quiet. I don't want to, give you shade. I'm not the kind of person who has Ulfway jet bikes that are painted same hand. That's not. I wouldn't say that kind of thing.
I don't use Ulfway jet bikes as Sam Han. I would use honestly jet bikes. I'd use as Sam Han all the time.
Okay.
I think you're more referring to my Sam Han Hornets that I used as L-Tog.
There we go. I knew it was something like that.
There you go.
Gotta do the research first, Richie.
Exactly. Sorry. You can't just get throwing around the insults if you don't know what you're talking about.
Now I just feel stupid.
Well, there you go.
I'll go back into my box. No, but first I will talk a little about my Red Scorpions. So I want to take some Red Scorpions because I've always wanted to take them, and I really like the Carab Cullen, the Risen model. So yeah, just so in our 1,000-point fluffy fun list, I am taking a Leviathan Dreadnought in the form of Carab Cullen the Risen because he's such a cool model. So yeah, when we were originally talking about this, the idea was to have like a character or a special character if possible in your force, or I might have misheard that, but that's what I did. Yeah. So I have 3 characters in my list, all named Carab Cullen the Risen. These are the Leviathan Dreadnought character.
Can I just do a quick little side thing here? Because,
I was going to explain my list, but yeah, sure, go on.
Yeah, because the Red Scorpions don't have a previous chapter, so you could count them as any successor chapter. Yes,
you can count as many successor chapter. Rumor has it they are technically an Emperor's Children successor is what the rumors are, but they're not in any of the books. So
I thought it was a Word Bearer's one.
No, it's unknown. So yes,
so you could take these. So you could choose the successor choice of it being one of the main 6.
I am going to be taking them as a successor chapter. Yes.
So does that mean that you could make Carab Cullen a Iron Hands Dreadnought?
I mean, I could.
Yes, but
I'm not going to be. Well, I'm not in.
My brain just went somewhere very dirty.
So, okay. So if we want to go for the, okay, fine. I can read through my list the way it would be described in, say, Battlescribe. So I am taking them as Iron Hands successors, but not for the reasons you think.
Oh, I see.
You filthy scoundrels.
So we've got 3 Iron Handed players and a Dark Angel. Brilliant. Well, I'm going to have a great time.
So the rationale is for reason why I've taken Iron Hands is because back in the Anphelion project, like 1-2 editions ago, there's various different characters in the Red Scorpions. At that time, Carab Cullen was alive and well. He wasn't in a dreadnought yet. And there was another dreadnought character called Brother Halar, who was a flamestorm cannon wielding dreadnought, and he was very cool. And I wanted to take him, but there is like hidden away in the FAQs how you can take him, and he's just a standard dreadnought that you can give a flamestorm cannon to, but no other benefits. However, with the release of Iron Hands, there is that stratagem that allows you to turn a dreadnought into a character, and because of that is the reason why I've decided to take the Red Scorpions as an Iron Hands successor, specifically a successor. I'm not going to be using the Iron Hands chapter tactic because I'm not going to be that guy.
You are totally entitled to do so, though, mate.
I'm totally entitled to do so, but I don't want to.
Are you going to be using their stratagems?
Because that would be very easy to be that guy and just take Iron Hands.
But you could still take their warlord traits and their relics and their stratagem So you could be like, hey, Carib Cullen, my Leviathan character, is now halving all damage.
Isn't that's the irons? That's the stone thing, isn't it?
No,
That's a stratagem.
they've got a stratagem. It's a stratagem in the Space Marine.
I mean, I could do that. I mean, I could be doing that, and I probably will, to be honest.
I feel like I've been cheated here.
I love Rich's attempts to sort of be like, I'm not going to be that guy. It sounds
hang
an
on.
awful lot like that guy.
Let me explain the theme of my list, because the theme of my list was I really wanted to take Carib Cullen, and I really wanted to take Brother Halar, so I was always going to take Brother Halar as a dreadnought, but now because of Iron Hands, I can actually make him a character, which makes him a bit cooler. So I'm going to do that. That's why I'm taking them as Iron Hands. The other character I'm taking is Magister Severin Loth, because he's really cool, and I have that model, so I wanted to use that into my list. The slight drawback there is Carib Cullen and Severin Loth together is 500 points, so my HQ choices are half my army. And then for the rest, I know, it's fun times, right? So then the rest of my army is 3 intercessor squads and an aggressor squad. And the intercessors have all got the auto boat rifles, and the aggressors have got the flamestorm cannons.
I thought you'd take infiltrators because they can take the apothecary sergeants like Red Scorpions could do in 7th edition.
I was thinking of doing that, but the idea around the list was to.
I don't have enough points.
I don't have enough points, but B, not with Carib Cullen and Severin Loth and another dreadnought. But I really wanted to try and do something using the successor tactics, and I wanted to do something that was a bit more interesting. So the successor tactics I'm going with, I'm not going for the whatever the one is, so they just are pure Iron Hands. I'm instead going for long range marksman, which Joe you mentioned a little while ago, and rapid assault. So what that means is they get +3 inches to all of their ranges, and they can move in assault weapons. There's no negative to moving and shooting. So the idea of this list is it's got basically Cullen in the center, Severin Loth, and then Brother Halar, and then 3 intercessors and the aggressors just all kind of moving across the board quite rapidly as a blob, gunning down anything that they don't like the look of. And with the extra range, which means that the aggressors have got their flamers, but they've got 11-inch range now, which is pretty cool. And Brother Halar's flamestorm cannon has 15-inch range now, which is very good. So they've all got the extra range, and they can, because they are Iron Hands and it's a complete detachment, they have the advantage of, like Cullen himself, all his heavy weapons are reroll 1s because he's Iron Hands. The only drawback of the list is that none of my characters they're all named characters or dreadnoughts, so I have a relic that I can't take or I can't give to anybody at the minute. So short of doing that trick where I buff a sergeant, well, yeah, there's a thing I can do where I can buff a sergeant, I think, with a strategy. Yeah. So I'll probably have to do that in order to actually use my free relic.
Can you? No.
You can give a relic.
Yeah, there is a stratagem, but he can't take a relic. He can take special equipment or whatever it's called.
Right, but it counts as a relic. It counts as that's like the relic choice, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I don't get to.
You could pay the so you could take a relic and then put it on your dreadnought character when he becomes a character, but obviously you can't do that list building process. But you could pay the CP to put a relic on him, couldn't you?
No, because dreadnoughts very specifically are not allowed relics.
Are they allowed warlord traits?
They are allowed warlord traits. So I will be dishing out at least one warlord trait to, well, probably Severin Loth. I'm probably going to take him as the warlord.
You're not going to give Cullen the Iron Hands one, where for every 6 that he rolls the hits, he gets to make another attack.
That's probably what I will pay. That's probably what I'm going to take extra. Yes.
Yeah. Can I change my answer towards what army I'm taking? I mean, this feels.
Well, this is like a fluffy list. I'm going to take the special characters of the army, and I've topped it up with some Primaris. That's what I've done here. Don't make out I'm the bad guy here. I didn't take pure. I'm
the bad guy here.
I'm not the bad guy.
Imperial fists, and you're like, oh, can't take Iron Hands. It's cheese because you're not painted black.
Oh my god.
Well, I know this. I'm making a successor chapter, trying to put together a good list using the successor tactics, which is what I've done.
So run a chaos.
Say that again, Joe.
Just run a chaos army then.
Well, no, my army is themed around lots of flame weapons, assault weapons. So you're moving fast. I've got a psycho because I've no idea what you guys are going to bring.
You're running a salamanders army.
I mean, no. Well, in the sense I've got an aggressor squad and a dreadnought with a heavy flamer and a flamestorm cannon. Yeah. But I've also got some assault weapons. All the intercessors have got the assault bolt rifles, which I'm using comboing with the rapid assault, so there's no negatives to hit. And the long range marksman to give the extra range. I mean, admittedly, that's me talking a bit gamey. It's supposed to be a fun, fluffy list, and that's kind of how I've wanted to approach it. It's a different kind of list with one theme in mind of just moving around quickly, centered around this big dreadnought character model I really like.
I guarantee there will be at least one person at the table having fun.
And it probably won't be
running Iron Hands.
It probably won't be me because I will get all my stuff killed on turn 1. Or everyone's going to shoot Carib Cullen on turn 1, and then he'll blow up, and then there you go. Then that's nearly half my army gone.
I have to admit, I spent a long time thinking about doing an Emperor's Children army as part of this project, but I figured that was it, not in the spirit of the occasion, I suppose. Because I just love that Noise Marine model. I keep looking at him going, "Oh, that could have been cool," but not to be. Anyway. So, just for reference, Sean is going to do Blood Angels, which is new for him because he's a hardcore Ultramarines player and has been for years and years and years. So he's bringing the fury of Baal to the tabletop with what will undoubtedly be a rather wonderfully painted Blood Angel army. And I think Tim's in the Phil ballpark where he doesn't yet really know, would be my assertion of where he's at, unless anyone else has heard from Tim.
Doesn't he really want to do Raven Guard, but was unsure what was happening with the rules?
Potentially. It's weird.
Oh, no, Blood Ravens, that was it.
That was it, yes, Blood Ravens. You're absolutely right, that was what he was going to do. Tim's on a weird hiatus at the moment because he's moving house and sorting his life out, so I haven't spoken to him in at least a week, which is a long time for not talking to Tim. I miss you, Tim. Where are you gone? Come back to us, friend.
Busy adulting.
I think that's what he's doing, unfortunately. Yeah, I think he's fallen into the old, horrific abyss of adulting.
The grown-up category.
I know. So there you go. I mean, based on what we've said there, guys, by all means, let us know who you think is most likely to win. I don't think it's going to be me, based on these fantastic, fluffy lists that we've got here. Me and Phil will have a great game, though, won't we, Phil? What a fine time we'll have together. Although you're using Iron Hands as well, aren't you?
Well, no, I don't think I would, even if I was taking Minotaurs. I think I'd more likely take something like White Scars. I don't know, because I presume Minotaurs are a bit like Black Templars in that they're kind of aggressive, bit close combat-y, bit more assault-based, so I'd probably take something like that, maybe.
There you go.
I probably need to buy the Space Marine Codex so I can actually have a look at what I might do.
The Space Marine Codex and all of its supporting supplements.
Yes, yeah.
You got to get all 6 of them.
No.
I'm currently in the process of painting a massive 10-man Tartarus Terminator squad, so I might just chuck that in.
They are brilliant.
But they'll be Imperial Fists. They won't be double-hard Iron Hands, though.
We don't know yet, though, whether the Imperial Fists are not going to be double-hard, though.
Yeah. The rumour was basically the Imperial Fists are going to be the good one, but you might have to work for it, whereas Iron Hands is basically point and click. It's the AWP from Counter-Strike.
That's a pretty reasonable analogy. Yeah, me and Richie, or more specifically Richie, was saying the other day that he imagines there'll be like... which one was it? The Katachan, wasn't it, Rich? You think they're
Yeah, I'm thinking they're going to be the Katachan to like the Iron Hands Cadian, if you will. So they'll want you to have like the Vindicators and the Whirlwinds, and you basically when you have a random amount of shots, you can roll an extra dice, because that's something that hasn't been seen yet in the Space Marines books. I don't think it has anyway, so that's something that could be good for them.
I mean, their Whirlwinds bonkers.
Doesn't their character get rerolls against buildings and vehicles?
Yeah, that's something that, because that's their character, the special character, Tall, whatever, the guy who got the massive, quagmire fist. He's got his special rule is he can re-roll damage on vehicle. No, he gets +1 to damage against vehicles and buildings.
So do you reckon that they'll get re-rolled to wound against vehicles and buildings?
I mean, could you imagine that re-roll ones?
Because tank hunter, didn't they?
Always re-roll ones against vehicles and buildings. That could be cool.
Well, we'll know soon enough, I imagine. I mean, probably by the time this episode comes out, we'll probably actually already know. It's all speculative fun. But there you go. That concludes us talking about our Space Marine project. Hopefully it's been enlightening. At various points throughout now and the end of the year, I'm sure you'll see pictures of all of our projects as they're underway. Obviously, Joe's far ahead, and me and Richie are probably somewhere in the middle ground, or at least sort of thinking about or starting to build things, and Phil hasn't even decided what he's going to do yet, so exciting times all round. But there you go. With no further ado, let's make one of those glorious transitional noises. Woo! So that now brings episode 31 of the Lookout Sir 40k podcast to its conclusion. As always, we really appreciate you listening in and enjoying the show. I think, ultimately, it's one of the highlights of our ongoing existence that we bring such joy and or enthusiasm to you, our listening public. Obviously, massive thank you to Paulie for contributing to those segments in which he was able to take part. Obviously, continuing in the tradition of the guest winning at the quiz, which is a thing that at some point we're going to have to, deal with. I think, it brings a lot of our abilities or authority within Warhammer 40,000 into question when every single other person we bring on seems to know way more than we do. Begs the question why people even bother listening to us, don't you reckon?
It's a scary thought.
It is indeed. I think, it's good to get another one done and dusted. It's been a bit of a manic one for us because my holiday schedule has somewhat mucked everything up, really. So we recorded the Space Marine bit last week, and then I went away for 6 days. And I've literally landed this afternoon, sat down in front of my PC, recorded the majority of the show, and tomorrow I'm off to another holiday destination for another week, which is oh so wonderful. I don't mean to brag, of course, I'm just sort of trying to explain why it's all a bit sort of... Or maybe it didn't seem that way at all to you, maybe you thought it was wonderful. Let us know. Engage with Instagram, isn't that right, Rich?
That is correct. Please engage with us on the social media channels.
Tell your friends. Spread the good word. And if you haven't done so already, get around to watching Phil on Winter's SEO. You can see him looking all glum and grumpy at points as, things are going the way they may or may not go. That might have almost seemed like a spoiler, but don't read too much into it. We just had a funny 5 minutes here and there.
Did it really?
Your sour apple.
I didn't think I was, but maybe that's how it looks.
I got some decent little screen grabs of you with your arms crossed, looking all mopey at one point.
Oh no, I think it just went on for a long time. So you sort of, I'm not mopey. It's just more like fatigue, I think, than anything else.
Is that it? You haven't got the staying power that you once had.
Or you just, what you meant to do with your arms? Put them in your pockets.
We did have a bit of a late
wave them around like one of those tube men off the.
It's all your guys' faults because we stayed at yours, didn't we? And had a late one. And
we got up super early, and I had to drive you all the way there. And nearly ran out of petrol and had to coast miles looking for a petrol station. I was fearing I was going to break down.
But you found one in the end.
I did.
It sounds like an eventful journey right there. We should have, talked about that more.
It was one of those situations where I pulled in at the services and we got a coffee and breakfast. And I was like, I don't need to get petrol. I'll be fine. And then it turned out I wasn't. I was terrified for most of the journey from dropping off Phil that I was going to get stuck in the middle of a dual carriageway somewhere.
That would have been wonderful. I noticed as well during the course of the podcast we didn't bring up the little rule books that they're doing for Warhammer 40,000 and Age of Sigmar. Obviously we wouldn't bring up the Age of Sigmar one, but there is a little rule book for 40k Does anyone know if they've
My-
put like updated rules in it, or is it literally just the book that you can get now
I bet-
miniaturized?
I bet they won't. It'll just be like the old ones where they just made the print really small.
Yeah.
I hazard that will be the case. They've not said anything, and it's like, unless if they did that and they also included like all the old chapter approved missions and stuff like that, then I'd be like, oh, that'd be worth getting, because actually the old chapter approved books for like a sort of tournament gamey type of setting. You only really you don't need it for the beta rules anymore because they're all now redundant.
Yeah.
It's like you only use them for the missions, and that's kind of it. And it's like, I'd rather just have one book which has these are all the cool missions for like kind of a match tournament play setting. And it's like, it's not that, because it's also got all the narrative and open play stuff, which I get, but I'd sort of almost wish they sold 3 separate books. So you want your open play book? Here, buy this, and it's got all the open play stuff and like all the narrative missions, for example. And then here's your tournament gamery one with all your match play rules and missions. But annoyingly, it's not.
Yeah. Irritatingly, the only page of rules they've got in the preview is the charge and then fight phase, and then the bit about transports. And I don't know well enough to know at a glance exactly what may have changed about those. I think, if anything, these are probably the least affected set of rules in terms of how they've changed from FAQs.
In a way, it would actually it would make more sense to have them being the old rules, because then the FAQs are still consistent across the board. If you've got one set of rules that is different from the original set of rules, and then the FAQs only apply to one of them, then that might be confusing.
I feel an urge to apologise.
It feels kind of pointless, though, doesn't it?
Well, yeah. I was going to just say, I feel an urge to apologise for the coughing, burping combo that came out of people there that I can't edit out because it was too interlaced in what Phil was saying.
I did wonder what that was. I kind of feel that you should leave it in because it was glorious.
You wonder what it was, says you. Well, what do you imagine it was when you did it?
It wasn't. I didn't burp. I thought it was you.
No, but it wasn't me who burped. You did the cough, though, right?
No.
Someone's responsible.
Come on, Joe.
I'd own it. I'm the guy that farted in the middle of a battle report in your weird garage.
That's true. That's true. Although, to be fair, it is not objectively a weird garage. It is a perfectly normal garage. It's a weird studio setting for playing 40k games in. I'll give you that. But it's not a weird garage.
Like creepy vibes.
Well, again, because it's a garage. What do you want from it? You're supposed to come around and help me do it all up, Joe. That was the thing we talked about, wasn't it?
You've got to get all the stuff.
I can get all the stuff. Who are you to say that I don't already have all the stuff?
Oh, I don't know.
Exactly. See,
Yeah,
you don't know
stuff?
nothing, mate. Stop coughing and farting and burping on the podcast. It's not good for the listeners.
Oh, they love it. It'll be fine.
All right, fine. There we go. They enjoy it. That's enough for them. But yeah, anyway, no. Going back to the mini rulebook, it's just interesting, isn't it? It's something that Phil is absolutely right. If they release it and they don't keep it the same as its original print version, then obviously all the FAQs and erratas become somewhat redundant for this version of the publication. But surely that should be the point, and this is why I feel more and more like the 9th edition, opportunity should be coming around the corner more and more, because, it feels very much like we've gone through a very good process of beta testing over the course of the last 3 years, and I'm looking forward to a more succinct, clean version of this rule set, because it's a bit all over the place, as I love to grumble about.
I just think it's kind of daft to release a rule book with missions that no one uses anymore and have been FAQ'd since. If it's just the bog standard rule book exactly the same way it was years ago, I don't get what the point is.
Well, there you go. 30 quid as well, mate.
Because if you can carry it around in your pocket, it doesn't help if you still have to refer to FAQs.
Well, that's true. You can carry it around in your pocket with a mobile phone with all the relevant PDFs, or, just have a binder, and then that's all there. That'd be good, wouldn't it? But yeah, 30 quid for this as well. Do you think it's worth 30 quid? It doesn't feel like it's worth 30 quid to me.
No, you only use it for one page.
Is that the maps?
Yeah. And that's it.
Especially when you consider that a regular rulebook, I think, used to be 35 quid, didn't it?
Or maybe 45.
50. I think it's 50 quid.
Really?
Regular rulebook, yeah.
No, mate, I got it right in front of me here. 35 quid for the hardback rulebook.
Jeez.
So for a fiver less, you get a miniaturized. So for £5 more, you just get the full size book.
But you're paying for the convenience of it being so small.
I don't know if that's in any way accurate, Phil.
Well, I know, but I think that's their logic. It seems like a bit of a Christmassy. We're going to release this for the kiddies or for whoever because your mum and dad will buy it for you, so you're not paying that 30 quid. But to me, it's a bit expensive. If it was 15 quid, hands down buy it. But the 30, it's like the 4 pages of rules that you need are available free online as a PDF from Games Workshop. The 1 page you need, as Joe pointed out, is the deployment maps. Which you can I tend to just always photograph that page whenever I go to a tournament, so it's in my phone as a photo to look at.
Because that's the thing, the mini rulebook for 5th, 6th and 7th edition made sense because 5th, 6th and 7th edition were such massive in-depth rule sets where you needed to refer to the rulebook a fair bit if you weren't super familiar because of universal special rules and other kind of very nuanced things that existed within the game. But 80% of the rules that you actually pay attention to or need to question in a gaming setting aren't even in the rulebook, they're in the codexes.
If you were playing like not a non-map play game, like you were playing a narrative mission, because there's quite a lot of them in there, and there's a lot of rules as well. So it makes sense actually for those people that are doing like I said, you don't need to refer to the core rules. What you need to refer to is all the other stuff. And for some people, that might be the particular missions, or the stratagems, or the other stuff that go around it. So, the rules for sentries. If you're doing a narrative mission, you need that at hand. So if you play those games, then this is actually probably really practical for you. But if you're a match play book person, then actually this isn't for you because you know the rules. There's not much else in there that you need to refer to except the deployment maps.
Yeah, absolutely. But there you go. Anyway, that little ramble aside, check us out on the social media. Thank you very much for listening. It's always a pleasure. And with that, we will now say goodbye. Goodbye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.